The wind howled through the endless forests of Eastern Europe, whispering ancient names among the pines. Far away, icy waves crashed against rugged Nordic shores, their rhythmic pounding echoing forgotten tales. Across lands both untamed and eternal, voices spoke of gods who wielded thunder, spirits who guarded rivers, and giants whose shadows loomed large over the mortal world. These myths were not born in silence. They were carved by the cries of war, the songs of harvest, and the quiet prayers of people gazing at the stars, seeking answers to questions too vast for words. In the Slavic lands, the stories were as wild as the forests they came from. Perun, with his golden axe, ruled the skies with the ferocity of a summer storm, each lightning bolt a reminder of his power. Down below, in the shadowy marshes, Veles slithered, cunning and dark, a trickster who danced between the worlds of the living and the dead. The people told tales to remember their place in the great web of life, where every tree, river, and stone pulsed with unseen spirits. The gods walked beside them, not distant, untouchable deities, but forces as raw and real as the earth beneath their feet. To the north, the Norse sang of Odin, the one-eyed wanderer who traded his sight for wisdom. They revered Thor, whose hammer's strike could shatter mountains, and Loki, the shapeshifter who wore chaos like a second skin. Their world was suspended on the branches of Yggdrasil, a tree whose roots stretched deep into realms of fire and frost. For these people, the gods were not just rulers, they were companions in an existence as unpredictable as a stormy sea. Each story carried the weight of their struggles, their fears, and their hopes. These myths weren't merely entertainment, they were lifeblood. Fireside tales told in hushed voices served as survival guides for a harsh and beautiful world. Life was precarious, and so the people of these lands bound themselves to the divine. They asked the gods for strength in battle, mercy in winter, and bountiful harvests. Their stories became their compass, weaving meaning into the chaos of existence. The Slavic myths carried the heartbeat of nature. The sun was not just a celestial body, it was Dazbog, a generous deity who brought light and life. Rivers weren't mere waterways, but the domains of Rizalki, ethereal spirits who could either bless or curse. Seasons themselves were gods in a never-ending dance, Jarilo's springtime passion fading into Morina's icy grasp. Every element of their world shimmered with mystery, a constant reminder that humanity was never truly alone. Meanwhile, the Norse told of a cosmos on the edge of apocalypse. Ragnarok loomed like a shadow over their stories, a fiery end that would consume gods and mortals alike. Yet even in the face of this certainty, their myths pulsed with defiance. Thor's hammer sang against the encroaching dark, Freya's tears glistened as she sought her lost love, and Odin's raven soared, carrying whispers of what might still be salvaged. It wasn't just about surviving, it was about fighting, laughing, and loving in the face of inevitable loss. There was something deeply human in both traditions, a refusal to shrink before the immensity of existence. These people didn't have the luxury of control. The sea could swallow their ships, winters could freeze their crops, and wars could snatch their lives. But through their stories, they built bridges to the divine. They found courage in the thunder, solace in the rain, and purpose in the cycles of the moon. The gods reflected the people who worshipped them, imperfect, fierce, and deeply connected to the world. Slavic and Norse deities weren't remote beings seated on golden thrones. They stumbled, they raged, they wept. They were heroes and villains, creators and destroyers. Their flaws made them real, and their struggles mirrored those of the mortals who looked to them for guidance. As the stars wheeled overhead, the storytellers of both cultures passed down their myths from one generation to the next, weaving them into the fabric of everyday life. The Norse raised towering rune stones etched with tales of triumph and loss, while the Slavs whispered their legends into the fertile soil, ensuring the spirits of their ancestors would never fade. Across the wild landscapes of Europe, these stories lingered like smoke, reshaping themselves with each telling. And yet, beneath the surface, something unexpected began to stir. Two worlds, separated by geography and language, were not as different as they seemed. As trade routes twisted and armies marched, as whispers traveled through forests and across oceans, threads of similarity began to weave themselves between the tales. What was it that connected Perun's thunderous roar to Thor's hammer strike? Why did Veles and Loki both walk the line between savior and saboteur? Were these echoes the remnants of a shared past, or something deeper, something elemental that all humans understood instinctively? There, in the shadows of these questions, lies the flicker of an answer. The wind rises again, carrying voices that will not be silenced. And somewhere, in the farthest corners of memory, the gods of two worlds stir, waiting for their stories to meet. A lone fire crackled in the dense forests of what would one day be called Eastern Europe. Shadows danced on the bark of ancient trees, and a hunter crouched low, his breath rising in white puffs against the cold night air. Beside him, a storyteller murmured of gods who watched from the skies, guiding or testing their mortal charges. Far to the north, another fire burned on the frozen shores of Scandinavia. A chieftain sat at its center, surrounded by warriors who hung on every word of a skald recounting tales of Odin, Thor, and Loki. In both places, humanity's fragile existence balanced precariously against the raw forces of nature, and their myths became anchors in an uncertain world. The birth of Slavic mythology rose from the soil itself, as the people tilled their fields, gathered herbs, and braved the dense, impenetrable forests. Their society grew in harmony with the land, tied to the rhythms of the seasons and the whims of the elements. These were not vast empires, but tightly knit communities, bound together by shared struggles and celebrations. The forest was both sanctuary and adversary, a place of mystery where spirits thrived and dangers lurked. To survive, they learned to live alongside their environment, and their myths mirrored this relationship. Perun, the thunder god, became their protector, his lightning striking down enemies and purifying the land. Veles, his serpentine rival, represented the shadowy forces of chaos and trickery, slithering between the roots of their sacred trees. Each god in spirit was a reflection of the world they knew, unpredictable, beautiful, and terrifying. The Norse, too, carved their myths from their harsh surroundings. With the sea as their highway and the mountains as their fortress, they built their lives in defiance of nature's wrath. Winters were long and merciless, the sun barely rising above the horizon, while summers were brief bursts of life and light. They were a people who looked to the waves and saw both opportunity and death. Their gods were born from this tension, embodying the resilience needed to endure such an unforgiving land. Odin's ceaseless quest for wisdom mirrored the Norseman's struggle to master his world, while Thor's strength became a symbol of protection against chaos. Loki, with his cunning and unpredictability, reflected the forces that could not be tamed but had to be navigated. Their myths were not static tales, but living reflections of a people who lived every day with the knowledge that the world could turn on them without warning. Both Slavic and Norse societies were shaped by the need to endure and adapt. The Slavs, with their vast expanse of rivers and forests, were farmers, hunters, and traders. Their settlements dotted the landscape like constellations, connected by waterways that carried both goods and stories. Their gods were as numerous as the natural elements they revered, their pantheon a sprawling tapestry of deities, spirits, and ancestors. Every field, tree, and river was sacred, home to beings who could bless or curse with equal ease. The Norse, on the other hand, forged their identity as seafarers and warriors. Their longships sliced through icy waters, carrying them to lands far beyond their own. They were raiders and traders, explorers and settlers, always seeking new horizons. Their mythology reflected their bold spirit, with gods who took risks, defied fate, and faced their enemies with unyielding resolve. The sagas told of epic voyages, mighty battles, and the looming specter of Ragnarok, a cataclysmic end they knew could come at any moment. Yet for all their differences, these societies shared an underlying truth: survival was never guaranteed. Slavic and Norse communities lived under constant threat from nature, disease, and human conflict. They looked to their gods not as distant rulers, but as allies in their struggle. Festivals and rituals were more than religious acts, they were lifelines, ways to ensure the cycles of life would continue. A good harvest was not merely a cause for celebration, it was a matter of life and death. As these cultures grew, their myths became intertwined with their identities. For the Slavs, the great migrations of the early medieval period brought them into contact with new peoples and ideas. Their myths traveled with them, evolving as they settled across vast territories. The Norse, too, carried their stories across the seas, their influence spreading through raids, trade, and settlement. With every voyage, they brought their gods with them, carving runes into stone and raising altars on foreign shores. And then came the shifting winds of religion and conquest. Christianity swept through Europe, transforming landscapes both physical and spiritual. Slavic tribes, once fiercely pagan, found themselves torn between old beliefs and the new faith imposed by foreign rulers. Temples to Perun were replaced by churches, and the sacred groves where they had once prayed became silent. But even as Christianity took hold, the old gods lingered in the shadows, their names whispered in secret, their stories hidden in the folds of folk traditions. The Norse faced a similar fate. The Viking Age brought them into contact with Christian Europe, and the gods of Asgard found themselves supplanted by the cross. Yet, like the Slavs, the Norse refused to let their myths vanish entirely. Their stories were preserved in the sagas, written down by Christian hands, but burning with the essence of the old ways. Odin, Thor, and Freya lived on, their voices echoing through the halls of memory. In these moments of transformation, a peculiar thing began to happen. The paths of Slavic and Norse mythologies, once separate, began to intersect. Viking traders ventured into the heart of the Slavic world, their ships navigating rivers that connected two distant cultures. Norse warriors fought alongside or against Slavic tribes, and their stories mingled like rivers converging at a delta. Common threads began to emerge, echoes of a shared human experience that transcended borders. Was it mere coincidence that Perun's lightning mirrored Thor's hammer strikes? That Veles and Loki both danced on the edges of chaos? Or was it something deeper, a reminder that the hearts of these people, separated by miles and mountains, beat to the same rhythms? The fires burned on, their light flickering against the dark, and the stories whispered through the night continued to shape the souls of those who told them. The Dnieper River stretched like a lifeline through the Slavic lands, its waters murmuring stories of ancient travelers. Its gentle currents bore witness to longships slicing through the mist, their carved dragon heads casting reflections on the surface. These were not merely traders or warriors, they were harbingers of a new kind of connection. The Norse called themselves Varangians, but to the Slavs, they were Rus. This meeting of worlds was not marked by conquest alone, but by exchanges of goods, beliefs, and whispers of myths that crossed borders as fluidly as the river itself. The Varangians did not come quietly. They arrived with an energy that reverberated like the pounding of Thor's hammer. From their cold northern homelands, they ventured into the heart of the Slavic territories, navigating the waterways like veins leading to the heart of a continent. Their longships glided through the Fokhov, the Dnieper, and the Don, connecting the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea, stitching together lands that had once seemed impossibly distant. It was a collision of worlds, but it was also a merging, two cultures meeting, not as strangers, but as echoes of one another. In the bustling market squares of Novgorod and Kiev, furs from the north mingled with the honey and amber of the Slavs. Silver coins exchanged hands as Norse axes and Slavic textiles changed ownership. The air was thick with the aroma of spices from Byzantium, brought by the Varangians on their way to the grand city of Constantinople. The Slavs called it Tsargrad, and for both peoples, it loomed like a beacon of wealth and opportunity. But these exchanges weren't limited to material goods. Stories flowed as freely as the rivers that carried them. In the smoky warmth of a Slavic longhouse, a Norseman might share tales of Odin's quest for wisdom or Thor's battles with the giants. In turn, he would listen to stories of Perun's thunderous wrath and Veles's cunning schemes. The similarities hung in the air like the scent of burning wood, unspoken but undeniable. Perhaps the Norse gods had traveled south in disguise, or perhaps the Slavic spirits had whispered their tales to northern ears. Whatever the truth, the boundaries between these mythologies began to blur. The Varangians didn't merely pass through, they left their mark. In the burgeoning cities of the Slavic world, Norse chieftains settled, marrying into local tribes and forging alliances that reshaped the cultural landscape. Their influence was most profound in the rise of Perun and Rus, a federation of Slavic tribes that bore the name of its Norse founders. Legends speak of Rurik, a Norse leader who established his rule in Novgorod, setting the stage for a dynasty that would unite the scattered Slavic lands under a single banner. But this was no simple tale of conquest or assimilation. The Varangians adopted the customs of the Slavs as readily as the Slavs absorbed elements of Norse culture. Pagan rituals intertwined, and the gods of both peoples began to share space in the minds of those who worshipped them. Perun's oak trees stood tall beside Yggdrasil, the Norse world tree, and the spirits of the forest watched as Viking warriors raised their horns in tribute to both Thor and Velis. The echoes of these cultural overlaps lingered in the rhythms of everyday life. Slavic women adorned themselves with Norse jewelry, while Norse warriors carried Slavic charms for protection. Norse runes found their way onto Slavic artifacts, and the intricate patterns of Slavic embroidery began to influence Norse designs. Even language was not immune. Words borrowed from one tongue enriched the other, creating a shared vocabulary that carried the weight of their connection. It was not always a peaceful coexistence. There were battles, betrayals, and bloodshed. The Varangians were as fierce as they were resourceful, and the Slavs were no strangers to defending their lands. Yet even in conflict, there was a sense of respect, an acknowledgement of shared strength. The gods, it seemed, were watching over both peoples, their laughter echoing in the clash of steel and the cries of warriors. As the centuries passed, the bonds between these cultures deepened. The Varangians became more than travelers or conquerors, they became part of the story. Their influence spread beyond trade and warfare, shaping the very identity of the Slavic lands they had come to inhabit. Perun and Rus flourished as a center of commerce and culture, its foundations built on the interplay between Slavic tradition and Norse determination. And yet, the rivers that connected these two worlds carried more than goods and stories. They carried the seeds of transformation. The winds of Christianity began to blow through Eastern Europe, bringing with them a new kind of belief that would challenge the old gods of both the Norse and the Slavs. But even as churches replaced temples and crosses supplanted runes, the echoes of the past remained. In the quiet moments of twilight, when the fires burned low and the river's song was all that could be heard, the spirits of these two worlds lingered. They moved through the forests and glided over the waters, their presence a reminder that the meeting of Slavic and Norse cultures was more than a historical event. It was a story that refused to be forgotten, flowing like the rivers that first brought them together. The flickering flame of a hearth casts shadows on a lone storyteller's face. In his hands, an old manuscript whispers of gods, monsters, and heroes whose names still echo in the bones of the earth. These are the keepers of memory, the scribes, skalds, and storytellers who breathed life into mythology. But while the Norse left their gods etched in ink and carved in stone, the Slavic myths live like ghosts, scattered across folk songs, ancient tales, and fragments buried in the soil. Two worlds of storytelling, two paths of preservation, yet the same yearning to make sense of the mysteries around them. In the far north, where winters stretch endlessly and survival demands resilience, the Norse wove their myths into words that refused to fade. The prose Edda, written by Snorri Sturluson in the 13th century, stands as a testament to their rich tradition. It is a treasure trove of myth, explaining the world of the gods with clarity and purpose. Odin's quest for wisdom, Thor's unyielding strength, Loki's cunning betrayals. All these stories were given structure and permanence by the hand of a Christian author who sought to preserve the old ways before they vanished into obscurity. Side by side with the prose Edda is the poetic Edda, a collection of verses brimming with raw emotion and ancient wisdom. Its poems sing of Yggdrasil, the great tree that binds the nine worlds, and of Ragnarok, the fiery end that even the gods cannot escape. These verses capture the Norse spirit in its purest form, fierce, fatalistic, and unyielding. They pulse with the rhythms of the sea and the echoes of wind howling through fjords, reminding the reader of a world where nature was both sanctuary and adversary. And then there are the sagas, sprawling narratives that blur the line between myth and history. Tales of legendary heroes like Sigurd and the cursed treasure of the Nibelungs blend seamlessly with stories of ordinary men and women striving to carve out a place in an unforgiving world. These sagas are more than stories, they are maps of the Norse psyche, charting the course of honor, loyalty, and the unrelenting pull of fate. But where the Norse myths stand, preserved in carefully penned manuscripts, the Slavic myths lie hidden in the folds of time. The Slavs, with their deep reverence for oral tradition, passed their stories from one generation to the next like heirlooms. Each telling reshaped the tale, layering it with the teller's experiences and the listener's hopes. Without a single, unifying text to anchor their mythology, the Slavic gods lived in whispers, and psalms sung under the moonlight, and in rituals performed beneath sacred trees. Folk tales became the backbone of Slavic mythology, capturing its essence in ways both profound and playful. Stories of Baba Yaga, the fearsome witch of the woods, and Kashai the deathless, the unkillable sorcerer, carried echoes of ancient deities reimagined in new forms. These tales weren't merely entertainments, they were guides, warning of the dangers lurking beyond the village's edge and reminding listeners of the delicate balance between humanity and the forces of nature. Archaeological findings also play their part in uncovering the Slavic pantheon. Sacred groves unearthed in the heart of former Slavic territories reveal places of worship where the earth itself was the altar. Carvings of Perun, the thunder god, and idols of Mokosh, the goddess of fertility, tell of a people who found divinity in the cycles of life and death. These discoveries provide a glimpse into a world where every stone and tree was alive with meaning. The chronicles of medieval monks add another layer to this fragmented tapestry. Though written through the lens of Christian conversion, these texts preserve faint traces of the old ways. Nestor's primary chronicle, a cornerstone of Slavic history, hints at the gods once worshipped before Christianity's rise. The accounts are often dismissive, branding the old deities as pagan idols, yet they offer valuable clues about the beliefs that shaped the Slavic world. While the Norse and Slavic traditions diverge in their methods of preservation, they share a profound truth: mythology is a reflection of humanity's need to find order in chaos. For the Norse, this meant capturing their gods and heroes in texts that could outlast the long winters and the march of Christianity. For the Slavs, it meant weaving their beliefs into the fabric of daily life, ensuring that even as the names of their gods faded, their essence would remain. But there is a cost to preservation. The Norse myths, meticulously recorded, carry the mark of their time, filtered through Christian scribes who sought to frame pagan beliefs in terms they could accept. Odin's wisdom, Loki's mischief, and even Ragnarok itself are colored by this lens, leaving us to wonder how much of the original spirit was lost or transformed in the act of recording. The Slavic myths, by contrast, are like fragments of a shattered mirror. Each piece reflects a part of the whole, but the image remains incomplete. The stories that survived, through folk traditions, chronicles, and archaeological remnants, offer tantalizing glimpses of a pantheon as vibrant and complex as any other. Yet the lack of a unifying text leaves their mythology open to interpretation, a puzzle that scholars and storytellers alike continue to piece together. And so, the sources of these mythologies are as different as the lands they sprang from. The Norse left us a library, their words etched in ink and stone for all time. The Slavs left us a whisper, a haunting melody carried on the wind. Yet in both, there is the same spark of wonder, the same hunger to understand the world and humanity's place within it. These myths, whether sung by a skald or whispered by a village elder, endure because they speak to something timeless, something unshakably human. The firelight flickers again, and the stories wait to be told. In the beginning, there was nothing. But this was not an empty nothingness, it was a void pregnant with potential, a silence vibrating with the promise of life. To the Norse, this nothingness was Ginnungagap, a yawning chasm stretching between realms of fire and ice. To the Slavs, it was Rod, the primordial force of creation, emerging from the depths of an unfathomable cosmic egg. Two peoples, separated by distance and culture, gazed into the abyss and imagined the same miracle, the birth of the world. The Norse creation myth begins with chaos. To the south lay Muspelheim, a realm of searing heat and flames that danced wildly, uncontrolled. To the north was Niflheim, a land of freezing mists and icy rivers. Between them stretched Ginnungagap, an endless void, a breath held before the storm. It was here, in the tension between fire and ice, that life began. From the icy rivers of Niflheim and the fiery sparks of Muspelheim, the first being was formed, Ymir, the primordial giant. Ymir was not born gently, he was a raw, elemental force, his immense body dripping with sweat and his breath steaming like a forge. From his sweat came other giants, chaotic and unruly, spreading across the void like weeds in a fertile field. But Ymir was not alone for long. As the ice continued to melt under the warmth of Muspelheim, another being emerged, Audhumla, the great cow. Her milk flowed like rivers, nourishing Ymir and sustaining life in the void. She licked the salty ice, and from her labor, a figure took shape, Buri, the forefather of the gods. From Buri came Odin, Vili, and Ve, the first gods who would rebel against the primal chaos. Odin and his brothers, driven by a need for order, struck down Ymir. The battle was cataclysmic, a clash that shook the void to its core. From Ymir's colossal body, they crafted the world. His flesh became the land, his blood the oceans, his bones the mountains, and his skull the sky. His eyebrows formed Midgard, the realm of humanity, while his brain became the clouds that drifted across the heavens. Even in death, Ymir's essence pervaded the world, a reminder of the chaotic origins from which life sprang. The Slavic creation myth unfolds differently, yet it carries a similar resonance. At the heart of it all is Rod, the primordial god of creation, born from the cosmic egg. This egg floated in the vast, dark waters of nothingness, cradling within it the seeds of all existence. When it cracked open, Rod emerged, his presence bringing light and structure to the void. Rod was not just a creator, he was the essence of life itself, the force that bound all things together. From him sprang the three realms of the Slavic cosmology, Prav, the divine order, Yav, the tangible world of the living, and Nav, the mysterious realm of spirits and the dead. These realms, interconnected yet distinct, reflected the Slavic belief in balance and interconnectedness. Nothing existed in isolation, everything was part of the whole, woven together by Rod's unseen hand. Rod then gave birth to Sverige, the sky god, who hammered the first sparks of life into being. With his divine forge, Sverige created the sun and the stars, shaping the heavens that would watch over the earth. Other gods followed, Perun, Velis, and Mokosh, each embodying aspects of nature and humanity, their roles defined by the harmonious cycle of creation set in motion by Rod. While the Norse myth is a tale of conflict and transformation, the Slavic myth is a story of harmony and emergence. Ymir's violent death is the catalyst for the Norse cosmos, a testament to the belief that order must rise from chaos through struggle and sacrifice. The Norse world is born of division, fire and ice, gods and giants, life and death, locked in an eternal dance of opposition. The Slavic myth, by contrast, emphasizes unity. Rod does not destroy to create, he simply becomes. The cosmic egg cracks not from violence but from inevitability, a natural unfolding that mirrors the cycles of nature the Slavs revered. Rod's act of creation is gentle yet profound, a quiet assertion of life in the face of the void. And yet, beneath these differences lies a shared truth. Both myths speak to the human need to understand beginnings. Whether through the Norse image of Ymir's dismembered body shaping the earth or the Slavic vision of Rod's harmonious emergence, these stories reflect the awe and terror of creation. They remind us that the world we inhabit was not always here, that it was forged, whether by struggle or grace, out of nothingness. The echoes of these myths linger in the landscapes that inspired them. In the jagged fjords of Scandinavia, where the sea meets the sky in a dramatic collision, one can almost hear the clash of Ymir's demise. In the vast forests and rolling plains of the Slavic lands, where rivers flow endlessly and the horizon stretches wide, one can feel the gentle hand of Rod, weaving life into the tapestry of existence. Even now, these myths speak across the ages, their voices intertwining like threads of a shared dream. The worlds of Ymir and Rod may seem far apart, yet they are bound by a common yearning, to make sense of the void and to find meaning in the miracle of creation. Beneath the vast expanse of the heavens, where the winds whisper secrets to the earth, there stands a tree. Its roots burrow deep into the underworld, its branches stretch skyward to the realm of the divine, and its trunk is the bridge that unites them all. For the Norse, it is Yggdrasil, the mighty ash tree, the axis upon which all existence turns. For the Slavs, it is the sacred oak, a tree so revered that its presence marked the center of the cosmos. These are not merely trees, they are symbols of life, death, and the eternal connection between all things. Yggdrasil is no ordinary tree. Its branches encompass the 9 realms of Norse cosmology, uniting the gods, humans, and creatures of every kind in a delicate balance. At its roots lie the wells of wisdom and fate, guarded by ancient beings who know the secrets of the past and the promises of the future. The Norns weave the threads of destiny here, each strand a life, each knot a turning point. Above, in its towering branches, dwell eagles and hawks, their eyes surveying the breadth of creation. But Yggdrasil is not invincible. It is gnawed upon relentlessly by Nhggr, the serpent who seeks to bring it down. Squirrels scurry up and down its trunk, carrying messages, sometimes insults, between its inhabitants. The tree suffers, yet it endures, embodying the resilience of the Norse people, who understood that existence is a constant struggle between growth and decay, life and death. The Slavic oak holds a similarly central place in its mythos. Often associated with Perun, the thunder god, it stands as a living connection between the 3 realms of Slavic cosmology, Prav, Yav, and Nav. Its roots delve into the mysterious underworld of Nav, where spirits dwell. Its trunk represents Yav, the tangible, everyday world. Its canopy reaches into Prav, the divine realm of order and the eternal. Like Yggdrasil, the Slavic oak is a symbol of unity, a reminder that all aspects of existence are intertwined. The oak, too, was seen as sacred and indomitable. In ancient Slavic rituals, groves of oak trees were hallowed ground. Under their shade, offerings were made, and prayers rose like smoke through the leaves to the heavens. Perun's lightning would often strike these mighty oaks, marking them as holy. To the Slavs, the oak was not just a tree, it was a living embodiment of strength and divine will, a protector and a witness to the sacred. The parallels between Yggdrasil and the Slavic oak are striking. Both trees serve as world axes, linking the heavens, earth, and underworld. Both are deeply rooted in the spiritual consciousness of their respective peoples, serving as reminders of the cyclical nature of existence. The imagery of a cosmic tree is universal, but for the Norse and Slavs, it became a profound symbol of their worldviews. There are, of course, differences. Yggdrasil is a site of tension and conflict, a tree that bears the scars of the struggles around it. It hosts creatures that nibble and bicker, and its very survival feels precarious, yet vital. This reflects the Norse understanding of life as a battleground, where even the mightiest forces are not immune to the inevitability of destruction. The Slavic oak, by contrast, is a symbol of harmony and permanence. It does not suffer the same cosmic gnawing as Yggdrasil, instead, it stands firm, its strength a testament to the interconnectedness of all things. Where the Norse see a world in constant peril, the Slavs see one sustained by balance, with the oak as its unwavering anchor. Despite these differences, the emotional resonance of the trees is universal. To stand beneath Yggdrasil or the sacred oak is to feel both small and infinite, a fleeting part of a much larger whole. The rustling of their leaves carries the wisdom of ages, a reminder of the stories and beliefs that have shaped human understanding of the universe. Even today, the echoes of these sacred trees remain. In Scandinavia, the image of Yggdrasil persists in art and storytelling, a symbol of resilience and interconnectedness. In Slavic lands, the oak is still revered, its presence in folklore and ritual a testament to its enduring power. Whether as the ash of the Norse or the oak of the Slavs, these trees remind us of the threads that bind us to the earth, the heavens, and one another. And so, they stand, these trees of myth and memory. Their roots grip the past, their branches reach for the future, and their trunks bear the weight of the present. They remind us that the world is both fragile and enduring, chaotic and harmonious, a paradox held together by the sacred axis of the tree. The world stretched out in all directions, layered and interconnected, like a great tapestry woven by unseen hands. To the Norse, these realms number 9, a sacred and mysterious configuration that touches every corner of existence. For the Slavs, the cosmos unfolds as three distinct yet intertwined realms, Nav, Prav, and Yav, each reflecting an essential part of reality. Though born of different cultures, these cosmologies share a profound truth. The world is not a singular, linear space, but a vast, multidimensional existence where life, death, and eternity coexist. The Norse nine worlds are bound together by Yggdrasil, the great ash tree, their roots and branches reaching into every corner of the universe. Each realm holds its own essence, its own purpose. Asgard, the home of the gods, glimmers with divine splendor, the seat of power for Odin, Thor, and the Aesir. Midgard, the realm of humans, is both ordinary and extraordinary, a bridge between the divine and the mortal. Jotunheim, the land of the giants, brims with wild chaos, its rocky expanses echoing with the footsteps of ancient beings. Below lies Helheim, a shadowy underworld ruled by Hel, Loki's somber daughter. In stark contrast, Alfheim sparkles with the light and beauty of the elves, while Svartalfheim lies shrouded in the mystery of the dwarves' forges, where they craft treasures of unimaginable power. Muspelheim burns with fire's primal fury, while Niflheim freezes with the unyielding cold of death. Vanaheim, home of the Vanir gods, hums with the rhythms of nature and fertility. Together, these nine realms form a complete vision of existence, chaotic, ordered, and interdependent. In Slavic cosmology, the world is also divided, but its simplicity belies a depth that mirrors the Norse vision. Yav is the physical world, the realm of the living, where humans dwell and the cycles of nature unfold. It is tangible, immediate, and familiar, but it is only a part of the whole. Above Yav is Prav, the realm of divine law and eternal truth. Prav is not a place one can see or touch, it is the unseen order that governs the universe, the guiding force of gods and destiny. Beneath Yav is Nav, the shadowy underworld, a place of spirits and ancestors. It is the realm of the dead, shrouded in mystery and reverence. But unlike the grim separation often associated with death in other traditions, Nav is not feared in Slavic belief. It is a necessary part of the cycle, a realm where the departed find peace and wisdom. Life flows from Nav to Yav and is guided by Prav, creating an eternal cycle that binds all existence together. The Norse nine worlds and the Slavic three realms diverge in structure, yet their essence resonates with shared themes. Both systems depict a cosmos where realms are distinct yet interconnected, forming a web of existence where no part can exist without the others. Life and death, light and shadow, chaos and order, all are part of the greater whole. In the Norse tradition, the realms are often in conflict. The gods battle the giants, the forces of Muspelheim threaten to consume creation, and Ragnarok looms as an inevitable end. This tension mirrors the Norse worldview, where existence is a struggle against the forces of chaos and destruction. The nine worlds are vibrant but precarious, held together by the fragile branches of Yggdrasil. The Slavic vision, by contrast, is one of balance and continuity. Yav, Prav, and Nav do not clash, they complement one another. Life flows naturally from one realm to the next, and the gods do not dominate but guide. The Slavs saw the cosmos as a reflection of nature's cycles, the sun rising and setting, the seasons turning, the seed growing into a tree and returning to the earth. This harmony reflects their deep connection to the land and their belief in the sacredness of life's rhythms. Even in their differences, the two cosmologies share profound similarities. Both emphasize the importance of the unseen. The Norse venerate the hidden worlds of Helheim and Svartalfheim, just as the Slavs honor Nav and Prav. Both acknowledge that the material world is only part of the picture, that beyond what can be touched and seen lies a greater, more profound reality. The emotional pull of these worlds is undeniable. To imagine Yggdrasil standing at the center of existence, its roots drinking from the wells of wisdom and its branches stretching into eternity, is to feel the awe of being part of something vast and interconnected. To picture Yav, Prav, and Nav weaving life, death, and truth into an unbroken circle is to understand that existence is not linear but eternal. These cosmologies do more than map the universe, they speak to the heart. They remind us that we are not isolated beings, but threads in a larger fabric. They challenge us to see the connections between life and death, chaos and order, the divine and the mundane. In the Norse and Slavic worlds, there is no such thing as separation, only the endless dance of realms, bound together by the unseen threads of creation. The 9 worlds and the 3 realms stand as testaments to the human desire to understand the mysteries of existence. Whether through the branches of Yggdrasil or the cycles of Yav, Prav, and Nav, these visions capture the beauty and complexity of the universe. They remind us that the world is more than what we see, that beneath and beyond the surface lies something eternal, something sacred. And as the winds rustle the leaves of the cosmic tree, they whisper that we, too, are part of this vast, interconnected whole. High above the world, where mortal eyes strain to catch their glow, the sun and the moon move in their eternal dance. They are not just celestial bodies, they are living, breathing entities imbued with power and purpose. For the Norse and Slavs alike, these luminous orbs were more than lights in the sky. They were symbols of divine will, guardians of time, and storytellers of cosmic balance. Through their myths, the sun and moon took on personalities, emotions, and destinies, mirroring the struggles and triumphs of those who gazed up at them. In Norse mythology, the sun and moon are siblings, their lives bound together by the rhythm of the cosmos. Sol, the sun goddess, is radiant and powerful, driving her chariot across the heavens. Her task is not a peaceful one. She is pursued relentlessly by Skol, a fearsome wolf, whose jaws snap at her heels. Her brother, Mani, the moon god, shares her fate, forever hunted by another wolf, Hati. This chase is not a leisurely game, it is a race against annihilation, a struggle that defines their existence. The pursuit of Sol and Mani is more than a tale of danger, it is a vivid metaphor for the cycles of the cosmos. Day and night, light and shadow, are locked in an endless pursuit, one giving way to the other in a rhythm that mirrors life itself. Yet, even in their vulnerability, Sol and Mani are resilient. They endure the chase, their light shining defiantly against the darkness that seeks to consume them. Their story is one of persistence and balance, a reminder of the eternal push and pull that shapes the universe. In Slavic mythology, the sun and moon also take on divine roles, but their relationship is one of tension and tragedy. The sun, often personified as Dasbog, is a god of life and abundance. He is a giver, his warmth and light nourishing the earth, his presence a symbol of vitality and prosperity. The moon, in contrast, is mysterious and melancholic. Associated with chores, a god of night and dreams, the moon holds sway over the unseen, the emotional, and the reflective. Together, they embody the duality of existence, action and introspection, light and shadow. One of the most poignant Slavic myths tells of a love triangle involving the sun, the moon, and Zoria, the goddess of dawn. In this tale, the sun and moon are lovers, but their union is marked by betrayal. The moon's infidelity with Zoria leads to an eternal separation, their relationship fractured and their paths forever divided. This myth imbues the cycles of day and night with a sense of longing and heartbreak, as if the sun and moon's perpetual alternation is a bittersweet reminder of what was lost. Despite the differences in these myths, the emotional resonance is strikingly similar. Both the Norse and Slavs viewed the sun and moon as more than celestial mechanics. They were beings with stories, struggles, and emotions. Whether it was the wolves chasing Sol and Mani or the fractured love between Dasbog and Chors, these myths brought the heavens closer to earth, making them a part of the human experience. In both traditions, the sun and moon also play critical roles in marking time and sustaining life. The Norse viewed Sol as the keeper of daytime, her presence vital for warmth and growth. Mani, with his phases, was seen as a timekeeper, his cycles influencing tides, agriculture, and even human emotions. For the Slavs, the sun's journey across the sky marked the rhythm of planting and harvest, while the moon's phases were tied to rituals, fertility, and the mysteries of the night. Together, these celestial beings dictated the pace of life, their movements woven into the fabric of existence. But their stories are not just about duty and routine, they are also about defiance. Sol's chariot blazes across the sky despite the wolf's relentless pursuit. Mani holds his path, illuminating the night even as Hati lunges at his light. Similarly, Dasbog's warmth persists despite the cold of betrayal, and Chor's glow touches the darkest hours, a soft reminder of presence even in sorrow. These myths speak to a shared human yearning, to endure, to shine, even when the odds seem insurmountable. There is a haunting beauty in these tales. They remind us that the sun and moon, so constant in our skies, are not static or indifferent. They are alive, dynamic, and deeply connected to the stories we tell about ourselves. Their light carries not only physical warmth and illumination, but also the weight of myth, the dreams of those who lived and loved beneath them. And so, the sun and moon continue their celestial dance, their paths intersecting and diverging in a rhythm as old as time. Whether as Sol and Mani or Dasbog and Chors, they are eternal figures of wonder, their presence a testament to the power of story and the timelessness of the human spirit. Through their myths, the heavens whisper to us, reminding us that even in the vastness of the universe, every light has a purpose, every shadow a story, and every cycle a meaning. In the depths of every story, where light meets shadow and the world teeters on the edge of transformation, there are figures who embody chaos. They are disruptors, tricksters, and agents of change, forces both feared and revered. In Norse mythology, this role belongs to Loki, the enigmatic god of mischief, whose cleverness and cunning often lead to both ruin and revelation. In Slavic mythology, Chernobog stands as a darker figure, the black god of chaos and misfortune, whose very name conjures images of shadow and strife. Though these two beings arise from different worlds, their essence strikes a similar chord. They are not merely destructive, but are pivotal to the balance of existence itself. Loki is a figure of contradictions. He is neither fully god nor giant, his lineage tying him to both realms yet anchoring him to neither. This duality defines him. He is an insider and outsider, a trusted companion and an unpredictable threat. Loki's presence at the heart of Asgard is both a boon and a curse. His cleverness often aids the gods, as when he tricks the dwarves into forging Thor's mighty hammer, Mjolnir. Yet his schemes inevitably spiral into chaos, bringing consequences that none can escape. Loki's chaos is not random, it is deliberate, calculated, and deeply human. He is the unpredictable force that exposes the fragility of order. When he insults the gods during the feast in Lokasenna, his words cut to the core of their egos, revealing their flaws and vulnerabilities. His role as the father of monstrous children, Fenrir, the wolf who will devour Odin, Jormungandr, the serpent destined to battle Thor, and Hel, the keeper of the dead, cements his position as a harbinger of Ragnarok, the end of the world. Yet even in destruction, Loki is necessary. He is the catalyst for change, the force that compels the gods to confront their mortality and prepare for their doom. Chernobog, in contrast, is shrouded in mystery and darkness. Unlike Loki, whose stories are rich with detail and personality, Chernobog exists in the shadows of Slavic mythology, a figure more implied than explicitly defined. His name, meaning black god, places him in opposition to Belobog, the white god, the embodiment of light, goodness, and order. Together, they represent the duality of existence, light and dark, creation and destruction, joy and suffering. Chernobog's chaos is not personal or mischievous like Loki's, it is elemental, a force that flows through the cracks of the world. In Slavic tradition, he is often associated with misfortune and calamity, a harbinger of the inevitable struggles that life entails. His influence is not limited to destruction but extends to the disruption of balance. Storms that flatten fields, illnesses that strike without warning, and conflicts that divide communities, these are the works of Chernobog. Yet even his darkness has a place. For without him, there can be no light, no triumph, no meaning to the victories of Belobog. Both Loki and Chernobog challenge the gods and humans to confront the uncomfortable truths of existence. Loki reminds us that even the most ordered societies are vulnerable to the cunning and chaos that lie within. His presence forces the Norse gods to adapt, to question their authority, and to grapple with the inevitability of their downfall. Chernobog, in his quiet, brooding way, underscores the necessity of hardship. His presence in the cosmic order ensures that growth is born from struggle, that the cycle of light and dark continues. Despite their chaotic nature, neither Loki nor Chernabog is entirely evil. Loki's wit and resourcefulness save the gods as often as they endanger them, and his actions, though disruptive, often bring about unforeseen benefits. Chernabog's darkness is a counterbalance to Belobog's light, a reminder that life's beauty is accentuated by its fragility. Their roles are not to destroy meaning, but to create it through contrast. Without chaos, there can be no order; without shadow, no light. Emotionally, these figures resonate deeply. Loki's sharp tongue and unpredictable antics evoke both frustration and admiration, his cleverness a mirror of humanity's own complexity. He is both a villain and a hero, a figure who reflects our capacity for both creation and destruction. Chernabog's shadowy presence, on the other hand, speaks to the inevitability of life's hardships. His role as the bringer of misfortune is a stark reminder that suffering is an intrinsic part of existence, a force that shapes and defines us. Yet, these forces of chaos do not stand alone. They are counterbalanced by the forces of order, whether it be the gods of Asgard or the light of Belobog. This interplay between chaos and order, between Loki and the gods, between Chernabog and Belobog, creates a dynamic tension that is at the heart of both mythologies. It is this tension that gives life its meaning, that makes triumph worth striving for and peace worth cherishing. Loki's laughter echoes in the halls of Asgard, a reminder that the god's power is not absolute. Chernabog's shadow falls across the Slavic lands, a quiet testament to the inevitability of struggle. Together, they teach us that chaos is not the enemy of order but its necessary counterpart, that balance is born not from the absence of conflict but from its resolution. And as their stories unfold, we see not just the gods they challenge but ourselves, the human spirit that finds strength in chaos, resilience in shadow, and meaning in the eternal dance between light and dark. The air crackles with power, an electric hum that stirs both fear and reverence. The supreme deities of Norse and Slavic mythologies, Odin and Perun, stand as titans of their respective pantheons. They are warriors and rulers, wielders of lightning and harbingers of destiny. In their hands, the skies bend, the earth trembles, and the hearts of mortals either cower or rally. Odin and Perun embody the forces that define the heavens and the earth, yet they are as different as the worlds they command. Their similarities and contrasts paint a vivid picture of divine might, justice, and the relentless drive to protect and shape their realms. Odin, the All-Father, is a figure of immense complexity. He is a warrior king, a seeker of wisdom, and a master of the runes. His appearance alone is unforgettable, cloaked in a wide-brimmed hat, his single eye glinting with unfathomable knowledge, and his spear, Gungnir, unerring in its aim. Odin's power is not only physical but intellectual. He is as much a strategist as he is a combatant. To gain knowledge, he sacrificed his eye at Mimir's well and hung himself from Yggdrasil, the world tree, enduring unspeakable pain to unlock the secrets of the runes. Odin's dominion extends far beyond battlefields. He is the god of poetry, inspiration, and the uncanny art of prophecy. Yet his role as a warrior cannot be understated. He is the general of the Einherjar, the chosen dead who train in Valhalla for the ultimate battle of Ragnarok. His presence on the battlefield is both inspiring and ominous. Ravens, his spies and messengers, circle above, their cries echoing his name as he surveys the chaos below. He is not a god of mercy but of purpose, his every action calculated to ensure the survival, or the rebirth, of the cosmos. Perun, the Slavic god of thunder and lightning, is no less imposing. His domain is the heavens, his weapon the mighty axe or hammer that cleaves through storms. Where Odin is a figure of multifaceted wisdom, Perun is the embodiment of raw power, a protector of order and justice. His fiery chariot blazes across the sky, the roar of his wheels blending with the thunderclaps of his voice. His presence is elemental, his essence tied to the storms that nourish the earth and terrify the unprepared. Perun is also a warrior king, his strength unmatched and his resolve unshakable. In Slavic lore, he is the eternal opponent of Veles, the god of the underworld and chaos. Their conflict is the heartbeat of creation itself, a cyclical battle of storm and earth, light and shadow. Perun's strikes do not merely punish, they purify. His lightning cleanses the world of corruption, restoring balance and reaffirming his dominion. Mortals pray to him for protection, for rain to feed their crops, and for the courage to face the unknown. The similarities between Odin and Perun are striking. Both are gods of the sky, their authority descending with the storms that shape the natural and spiritual worlds. Both are warriors, their weapons carrying the weight of divine will, Odin's Gungnir, a spear that never misses, and Perun's axe, whose strikes are felt as lightning bolts. Each commands loyalty and fear, their presence a reminder of the fragile line between life and death, order and chaos. Yet their differences are just as profound. Odin's power is rooted in his relentless pursuit of knowledge and strategy. He is as much a philosopher as a warrior, his actions often enigmatic, his motivations layered. Perun, in contrast, is direct and unyielding. His strength lies in his clarity of purpose, to protect the world from chaos and to uphold justice. Where Odin weaves plans within plans, Perun strikes with the certainty of thunder, his justice immediate and unquestionable. Their relationships with humanity also set them apart. Odin's wisdom and unpredictability make him a god both revered and feared. His favor is not easily won, and his blessings often come at great cost. He demands courage, intellect, and sacrifice, and those who fail to meet his expectations may find themselves abandoned. Perun, however, is a more straightforward protector. He is a god of the people, his storms both feared and welcomed as signs of his presence. His role as a guarantor of justice makes him a figure of reliability, a deity whose wrath is terrifying but whose fairness is unquestioned. Despite their differences, both gods embody the archetype of the divine ruler, wielding power not for personal gain but for the survival and flourishing of their worlds. Odin's sacrifices and Perun's battles are acts of stewardship, their efforts aimed at maintaining the delicate balance of creation. Through their myths, they remind us of the weight of leadership, the burden of power, and the necessity of sacrifice. In their stories, we see the awe-inspiring duality of supreme deities. They are protectors and destroyers, creators and warriors. They teach us that strength is not only about might but about purpose, that true power lies in the ability to wield it wisely. Whether under the watchful eye of Odin or the thunderous presence of Perun, we are reminded that the heavens above are not distant or indifferent. They are alive, vibrant with the energy of gods who shape not only the storms we see but the unseen forces that guide our lives. The essence of life, creation, and the beauty of existence often finds its most profound expression in the divine feminine. In the Norse and Slavic pantheons, this sacred role is embodied by Freya and Lotta, goddesses who hold dominion over love, fertility, and the natural cycles that sustain all living things. Their presence is a celebration of passion, vitality, and the mysterious forces that bind the world together. Yet their stories and symbolism reveal a depth that transcends mere beauty or abundance. They are also protectors, mourners, and powerful forces of transformation. Freya, the Norse goddess of love, fertility, and war, is a figure of captivating complexity. Her name, meaning lady, reflects her prominence and reverence in the pantheon. Freya's beauty is legendary, and her allure is both a blessing and a burden. She rides a chariot drawn by two cats, her golden hair catching the sunlight, her necklace, Brisingamen, gleaming with divine craftsmanship. Yet, beneath this image of radiant charm lies a goddess of immense strength and determination. Freya's domain is not limited to love and fertility, she is also a goddess of magic and death. She presides over Seer, an ancient form of Norse sorcery that weaves fate and reveals hidden truths. Her connection to the afterlife is seen in her hall, Folkvanger, where half of the warriors slain in battle are welcomed, a reflection of her equal claim to the battlefield alongside Odin. Freya's tears, said to turn into gold when shed, speak to her profound emotional depth, a blend of vulnerability and resilience that resonates with human experience. Lotta, the Slavic goddess of love, fertility, and spring, exudes warmth and renewal. She is often associated with the flowering of the earth, her presence heralding the return of life after the harshness of winter. Lotta's name is linked to harmony and unity, and her energy embodies the nurturing aspects of creation. She is depicted as a figure of serene beauty, her hair adorned with flowers, her touch bringing growth and vitality to the land. Unlike Freya's multifaceted and often turbulent narrative, Lada's mythology is gentler, more intimately tied to the rhythms of nature and the cycles of life. She is the goddess of weddings and family, her blessings sought to ensure harmony and prosperity. Songs and rituals dedicated to Lada celebrate her as the heart of the community, a divine figure who connects the people to the earth and to each other. Despite the cultural differences between Norse and Slavic traditions, the parallels between Freya and Lada are undeniable. Both goddesses are closely associated with love and fertility, embodying the forces that sustain life and create beauty in the world. They are symbols of abundance, their influence extending over the fields, the forests, and the hearts of humanity. Yet, they are not passive or idyllic figures. Their stories reveal layers of power, resilience, and agency. Freya's duality as a goddess of love and war reflects the Norse worldview, where beauty and strength are intertwined. Her willingness to claim fallen warriors as her own speaks to her boldness and authority. Similarly, Lada's connection to the renewal of spring highlights her transformative power. Just as the earth undergoes cycles of death and rebirth, Lada's energy represents the persistence of life even in the face of adversity. Both goddesses also hold sway over emotions, from passion to grief. Freya's tears of gold and Lada's associations with harmony illustrate their connection to the human experience of love in all its forms, joyful, painful, and transformative. Their presence reminds mortals of the fleeting yet eternal nature of love, a force as unpredictable as the changing seasons. The symbols associated with Freya and Lada further highlight their shared roles. Freya's Brisingamen, her cats, and her connection to the falcon represent freedom, beauty, and magic. Lada's flowers, wreaths, and the gentle renewal of spring evoke growth, purity, and the harmony of the natural world. These symbols are not static. They are alive, reflecting the dynamic energy of the goddesses themselves. Where Freya's narratives often involve personal sacrifice and the pursuit of knowledge or justice, Lada's tales are gentler, emphasizing her role as a unifying force. Yet both goddesses are revered not only for their beauty but also for their power to shape the world. They remind us that love is not a mere sentiment but a force that drives creation, nurtures growth, and inspires both courage and vulnerability. In their stories, we find the essence of the human condition, our longing for connection, our resilience in the face of loss, and our endless capacity for renewal. Freya and Lada are not distant, unattainable figures. They are woven into the fabric of life itself, their energy felt in every blossoming flower, every storm of passion, and every act of creation. Through Freya's golden tears and Lada's blooming fields, we glimpse the profound truth that love, in all its forms, is the heartbeat of existence. It is fierce and tender, fleeting and eternal, a force that binds us to one another and to the ever-turning cycles of the world. And so, their stories echo on, as vital and vibrant as the forces they embody, a testament to the enduring power of the goddesses who rule the realms of love and fertility. The world breathes in rhythms, its pulse dictated by the eternal cycles of life, death, and rebirth. These patterns are not just forces of nature but sacred truths embodied by divine siblings in Norse and Slavic mythologies. Freyr and Freya, the radiant twins of the Norse pantheon, and Jarilo and Morina, their Slavic counterparts, are twin gods whose stories reflect the beauty and pain of these cycles. Their myths intertwine themes of fertility and decay, passion and loss, growth and inevitable decline, painting a picture of existence that is both eternal and ephemeral. Freyr, the Norse god of fertility, prosperity, and sunlight, is the embodiment of life's abundance. He is the giver of harvests, the warmth of the sun, and the promise of plenty. His golden boar, Gullinbursti, glows with the light of dawn, a symbol of his unyielding vitality. Freyr is not a warrior by nature, yet his power is undeniable. He rules not with a sword but with the gentle, unyielding force of life itself. His association with fertility is profound, as is his connection to sacred unions that sustain both the earth and the heavens. Freya, Freyr's twin, mirrors his vitality but with a depth of complexity that embraces the dualities of life. She is a goddess of love, beauty, and fertility, yet her dominion extends to war and death. Her role as a psychopomp, guiding half of the fallen warriors to her hall, Folkvanger, balances her nurturing aspects with the inevitability of mortality. Freya's tears, transforming into gold, embody the beauty found even in sorrow. Together, Freyr and Freya form a dynamic pair, their unity representing the intertwined forces of creation and destruction, joy and grief. In Slavic mythology, Jarilo and Morina are similarly entwined as twin deities representing life's eternal cycle. Jarilo, the god of spring, fertility, and youthful vitality, is a bringer of joy and renewal. His arrival signals the thawing of winter, the return of green fields, and the blossoming of hope. Yet Jarilo's joy is fleeting, his fate bound to the changing seasons. His story is one of passion and promise, but also of impermanence, a reminder that even the brightest days must give way to night. Morina, Jarilo's sister and sometimes his bride, is the goddess of death, winter, and the end of the cycle. She is as cold and unyielding as the frost she commands. Morina's presence is often feared, her touch bringing the silence of the grave and the stillness of winter. Yet her role is not one of malice but of necessity. Without her, the cycle cannot turn, and life cannot begin anew. Her death each spring, often at the hands of her brother, is both tragic and beautiful, a sacrifice that ensures the rebirth of the world. The interplay between these twin deities, Freyr and Freya, Jarilo and Morina, captures the essence of life cycles. Freyr and Jarilo, as gods of fertility and vitality, represent the joyous ascent of life. Their energy is bright, warm, and boundless, drawing mortals into the beauty of existence. Freya and Morina, with their connection to death and loss, ground these cycles in reality. Their roles remind us that creation is impossible without destruction, that love and loss are two sides of the same coin. The relationships between these twins also reveal layers of emotional and symbolic complexity. Freyr and Freya, while not romantic partners, share a bond that underscores the interdependence of their domains. Freyr's bounty complements Freya's sensuality, and their unity creates a balance that sustains the world. Jarilo and Morina's relationship is more volatile, their bond defined by passion and tragedy. Jarilo's betrayal of Morina, a symbolic death that leads to the renewal of spring, is both a heartbreak and a promise. It is the price of life's return, a painful yet necessary end to winter's reign. Their myths speak to the universal truths of existence. Freyr and Jarilo's warmth mirrors the joys of growth and abundance, while Freya and Morina's sorrows reflect the inevitability of decline and death. Yet these stories do not dwell in despair, they emphasize the continuity of the cycle. Just as winter fades into spring, death leads to rebirth, and the end becomes a beginning. Symbols associated with these deities further illuminate their roles. Freyr's golden boar, Freya's falcon cloak, Jarilo's wreath of greenery, and Morina's effigy burned at spring festivals all serve as reminders of their power over life's transitions. These symbols are not mere decorations, they are sacred tokens that connect mortals to the forces that govern their world. Emotionally, the twin gods resonate deeply. Freyr and Jarilo's exuberance captures the hope and vitality that carry us through life's brightest moments. Freya and Morina, in their mourning and acceptance of death, teach us about resilience and the necessity of letting go. Their stories remind us that life's beauty is heightened by its impermanence, that love is profound because it exists within the shadow of loss. Together, the twin gods embody the eternal dance of creation and destruction, light and shadow. They are not just deities, but reflections of the cycles that define existence itself. Their myths are not confined to the past, they are alive in every sunrise and sunset, and every spring blossom and autumn leaf. They remind us that the world is in constant motion, a rhythm of beginnings and endings that echo through the heart of time. The gods and goddesses that shape the mythologies of the Norse and Slavic worlds are often portrayed as paragons of order, justice, and power. But in every pantheon, there are figures that defy these conventions, mischievous deities who challenge the status quo and bring chaos where there once was peace. Loki and Velis, the trickster figures of their respective mythologies, are embodiments of this defiance, shapeshifters, chaos bringers, and sometimes reluctant mediators between gods and mortals. Loki, the Norse trickster, is a being of contradictions. He is the son of giants, yet counts the gods of Asgard as his kin. He is bound by blood to Odin, but his actions often run counter to Odin's divine order. Loki's very nature is that of a disruptor. He weaves mischief and deceit into the lives of both gods and humans, often bringing about calamities that only he can later resolve or further complicate. His shape-shifting abilities are legendary. He can change form at will, transforming into a mare, a fly, a fish, or even a woman, constantly evading capture or punishment. But despite his trickster nature, Loki's actions are not entirely malevolent. At times, he aids the gods in achieving their goals, though his help often comes with strings attached, leading to further chaos in the long run. Perhaps one of the most famous of Loki's tricks is his role in the death of Balder, the beloved god of light. Loki's jealousy and cunning lead him to craft the spear that would end Balder's life, an act that sets the stage for Ragnarok, the end of the world. Yet Loki's role as a trickster is not confined to destruction. He is also a necessary mediator. When the gods find themselves trapped by their own actions or in need of a solution that skirts the edges of their morality, Loki is often the one to find the loophole, offering up solutions that, while unconventional, sometimes resolve problems the gods cannot face directly. Loki's relationship with the other gods is complex and unpredictable. At times, they view him as a friend, an ally in their schemes and battles, only to later curse him for his betrayal. His ultimate fate, bound to a rock and tortured for eternity, reveals the tenuous nature of his connection to the divine order. Loki embodies the essential unpredictability of life, the inevitable disruptions that challenge even the mightiest beings. He is a reminder that order, no matter how carefully constructed, is always subject to chaos. In Slavic mythology, Velis occupies a similar role as Loki, but his connection to the world of death, the underworld, and the forces of nature gives him a unique character all his own. Velis is a god of cattle, commerce, magic, and, most notably, chaos. His domain is the realm of the dead, and he is often portrayed as a serpent or dragon, a creature of transformation and danger. Like Loki, Velis is a shapeshifter. He can assume many forms, often slipping between the worlds of the living and the dead, creating disorder and confusion wherever he goes. His ability to move between these realms gives him a unique position as a mediator, often acting as the intermediary between gods and mortals or between life and death. The relationship between Velis and Perun, the Slavic god of thunder and lightning, mirrors the tension between Loki and Odin. Velis is the eternal opponent of Perun, embodying the forces of the underworld, while Perun represents the heavens and order. The two gods are locked in a constant struggle, their battles shaking the earth with thunder and lightning. Velis's chaos, like Loki's, is not inherently evil. It is a natural force of destruction that makes way for new creation. Where Perun brings stability and order, Velis brings change and uncertainty, and his tricks are often tied to the cyclical nature of life itself. Velis's trickster qualities come into play most strongly in his interactions with humans. He is known to deceive, mislead, and cause trouble for mortals, often tempting them with illusions or leading them astray. Yet, just like Loki, Velis's interference is not always malevolent. At times, he offers wisdom or guidance in disguise, teaching mortals important lessons through deception. His tricks are rarely straightforward. Just as with Loki, Velis's actions may have both destructive and creative consequences. One of Velis's most famous myths involves his kidnapping of the goddess, Marzanna, who represents winter. Velis, in the form of a serpent, steals Marzanna, and her eventual return signals the coming of spring. In this story, Velis's actions are not purely chaotic, they are part of the natural cycle of life, death, and rebirth. Velis is the god who ensures that the seasons change, that death is followed by life, and that everything is in constant flux. The similarities between Loki and Velis are clear. Both are shapeshifters, both are beings of chaos, and both exist at the edges of divine order, playing crucial roles in the balance of their worlds. They are tricksters, yes, but their tricks serve a purpose beyond simple disruption. They are mediators, using their cunning and deception to bring about change, challenge the gods, and reveal hidden truths. They remind mortals and gods alike that the world is not a place of rigid structure and control, but one of constant movement, transformation, and unpredictability. However, where Loki is often driven by personal motives, jealousy, revenge, or a thirst for mischief, Velus's actions are more deeply tied to the cycles of nature and the afterlife. Loki's tricks are often born of his desire to prove his superiority or to challenge the gods who might hold him down, while Velus's are more intrinsically tied to his role as a god of the underworld and chaos. Loki's transformation is often one of mischief, while Velus's shapeshifting is a more sacred, purposeful act, a manipulation of the very forces of life and death. Yet, despite their differences, both Loki and Velus show us the truth that chaos is not an enemy of creation, it is its necessary counterpart. Their tricks may lead to destruction, but from that destruction comes the space for new creation, new life, and new understanding. They are the agents of change, the guardians of life's unpredictability, and they remind us that nothing, not even the gods themselves, can escape the eternal pull of chaos. In the shadowy depths of both Norse and Slavic mythologies, where the living are separated from the dead, two deities reign over the realms of the deceased. Hel, the cold-hearted Norse goddess, and Velus, the enigmatic Slavic god, are both guardians of the underworld, each with their own dominion over death, spirits, and the unseen forces that linger beyond the mortal coil. Their realms are places of mystery, where the laws of the living no longer apply, and the souls of the departed must face their eternal fate. They rule over these domains not just with power, but with a certain ominous calm, maintaining the delicate balance between life and death. Hel, the daughter of Loki and the giantess Angerboa, is a figure of chilling authority and spectral silence. Her very appearance reflects her dominion over the dead. Half of her body is rotting and decomposed, while the other half is perfectly intact, symbolizing the dual nature of life and death. She is a goddess of the dead, yet not one who offers solace or peace. Her realm, also called Hel, lies deep in the roots of the world tree, Yggdrasil, far from the vibrant halls of the gods in Asgard. This is not a place of torment, but a cold and bleak home for those who did not die in battle and thus do not earn a place in Valhalla or Folkvanger. It is a place where souls simply exist, where the light of life is absent and the warmth of the living is a distant memory. Hel's role as guardian of the dead is not one of malice, but of inevitability. She does not seek to punish or reward. Instead, she simply ensures that the dead remain in their rightful place, neither disturbing the living nor escaping their fate. Hel's realm is defined by stillness, a quiet place where spirits await their ultimate destiny. She does not offer hope, only the cold truth of death's finality. And yet, she too is a necessary force in the great balance of existence, ensuring that the souls who pass through her realm remain where they belong, awaiting the judgment that may come at the end of time. Velus, on the other hand, is a figure of greater fluidity. As the Slavic god of the underworld, Velus is a shapeshifter, capable of assuming any form he desires, from that of a serpent to that of a man or a beast. He is the god who bridges the realms of the living and the dead, moving effortlessly between the two. His realm is the underworld, sometimes called Nav, a place where souls journey after death, but unlike Hel's realm, it is not a place of cold passivity. Velus's realm is one of magic, mystery, and the manipulation of the forces of life and death. He is the guardian of the dead, but also a figure of transformation, renewal, and chaos. Velus's role as the ruler of the underworld is not one of rigid order, but rather one of movement and fluidity, where the dead may encounter new opportunities or challenges in their afterlife. Where Hel's domain is fixed and unmoving, Velus's realm is connected to the natural cycles of the earth. He is a god of the harvest, cattle, commerce, and magic, and thus his influence extends beyond the underworld into the very forces that govern life itself. Velus presides over the spirits of the dead, but he also presides over the vital energies that shape existence, making him a god who is not just a gatekeeper, but a catalyst for transformation. In some myths, he is even considered a mediator between gods and mortals, taking the souls of the departed into his realm and ensuring their safe passage. but also offering opportunities for rebirth or second chances. In contrast to Hel's chilling indifference, Velus's approach to the dead is one of subtle manipulation. He does not seek to condemn or judge outright, but instead offers the souls of the dead the chance to experience life's cyclical nature. Some stories depict Velus as a trickster, whose relationship with the gods, particularly Perun, the god of thunder, reflects the constant push and pull between order and chaos. Velus often serves as the embodiment of the darker, shadowed aspects of existence, representing everything that falls outside the light of the gods. His battles with Perun, the storm god, are symbolic of the eternal conflict between death and life, chaos and order. Yet, through these struggles, Velus brings about change, reminding the world that death, like life, is not a fixed state, but a passage through which all things must go. Both Hel and Velus, while differing in their methods and demeanor, share a profound connection in their roles as guardians of the dead. They are not gods of annihilation or torture, but rather custodians of a space where life's essence must go when it is no longer in the world of the living. They ensure that the dead are not forgotten, that their journey is respected, and that the cycle of existence remains uninterrupted. They govern realms that are bound to the earth's rhythms, places where souls find rest or stagnation, and sometimes where transformation occurs. They embody the necessary darkness in the human experience, where death is not feared but accepted as part of the natural order. Where Hel's realm is cold and still, Velus's is far more dynamic, a place where change and fluidity are constant. The difference between their dominions speaks volumes about the worlds they represent. Hel's world is one of finality and reflection, a place where the dead rest in the cold silence of the grave. Velus, by contrast, brings a sense of fluidity to the afterlife, where souls are not locked in their graves, but might experience transformation, rebirth, or even return to the mortal realm. The two deities, in their own ways, represent different aspects of death, the calm inevitability of Hel's rule versus the more complex, ever-shifting nature of Velus's domain. Their stories, though born from different traditions, reflect universal truths about life and death. They are both gatekeepers and guides, the ones who ensure that souls are not lost, that they pass through the threshold between worlds with purpose and meaning. Hel and Velus may be figures of death, but they are also figures of continuity, ensuring that the cycle of existence is upheld, even in the realms beyond life. Their power lies not in what they destroy, but in what they preserve, the sanctity of the passage from life to death and the transformation that occurs in between. The fields stretch out in golden waves, bending beneath the weight of the harvest as the sun sets in a soft blaze of warmth. In both Norse and Slavic mythologies, the gods of the harvest, givers of abundance and life, hold sway over the cycle of the earth's seasons, ensuring that crops grow, animals thrive, and prosperity flows in abundance. Among these gods, Njord and Freyr, the mighty twin siblings of the Norse pantheon, and Dasbog and Mokosh, their Slavic counterparts, each play a pivotal role in maintaining the delicate balance between life seasons, granting the blessings of fertility, prosperity, and life itself. Njord, the Norse god of the sea, is more than just the ruler of the waves. While his domain spans across the oceans, he is also intrinsically tied to fertility and harvest. He governs the winds, the waters, and the fruitful bounty of the earth, ensuring that the seas provide sustenance for the people and that the harvests from the land are bountiful. As the father of Freyr and Freya, Njord's role in the prosperity of the world is clear. Though often associated with the wealth of the sea, he embodies the broader concept of life's abundance, his gifts extending to both land and water. Njord's connection to the harvest is not only one of material wealth, but also of blessings that extend into the very soil itself. He is a figure who provides the sustenance necessary for life, whether it be from the depths of the ocean or from the fields and forests of the earth. Freyr, Njord's son, takes on a more direct role in the fertility of the land. As the god of agriculture, fertility, and the sun, Freyr is the personification of the earth's abundance. His golden boar, Gullinbursti, embodies the fertility of the land, bringing good harvests and prosperous seasons. Freyr's connection to the earth is not just symbolic, but deeply rooted in the agricultural cycles that sustain human life. He is the bringer of peace and plenty, ensuring that the crops grow tall and that the people can feast and thrive. His gifts of prosperity and his embodiment of the sun and the rain make him a central figure in the Norse understanding of fertility and harvest. Freyr represents the harmony between nature's cycles and humanity's need for sustenance, a deity whose presence ensures that the earth gives back what it has been given. In Slavic mythology, the gods of the harvest are no less important, and Dazbog and Mokosh are the figures who carry the blessings of fertility, prosperity, and the land. Dazbog, the Slavic god of the sun, is often seen as the giver of life and light. His warmth is felt in every growing plant, in every ripening fruit, and in every golden field. He is the embodiment of sunlight, the energy that feeds the earth, allowing crops to grow and animals to flourish. Dazbog's role in the harvest is fundamental. Without his warmth and light, the seeds would not sprout, and the harvest would be a barren one. As the sun moves across the sky, it is Dazbog's light that fuels the earth's fertility, turning the land from winter's chill to summer's vibrant green. Mokosh, the mother goddess of the Slavic pantheon, is closely linked to the earth and fertility. She is the goddess of the harvest, the protector of crops, and the nurturing force behind all that grows from the soil. In her hands, the soil is fertile, the fields are full, and the crops are abundant. Mokosh is also a goddess of the household, connected to the daily work of women, ensuring that the harvests are plentiful and the food is prepared for the community. She represents the life-giving force of the earth, and her nurturing power ensures that the land remains fruitful and bountiful. In her domain, fertility is not just the growth of crops, but the care and attention that the earth requires to sustain life. Mokosh's role in the harvest is one of stewardship and protection, ensuring that the cycles of nature are respected and that prosperity flows to the people. The relationship between these gods, Freyr and Njord, Dazbog and Mokosh, is one of cooperation and mutual reliance. Freyr and Dazbog both represent the celestial and terrestrial forces that fuel the harvest. Freyr, with his direct connection to agriculture, is a god who blesses the land, while Dazbog, as the sun god, ensures that life-giving energy is cast upon the earth. They are complementary deities, one bringing the seeds, and the other ensuring that the earth can yield its fruit. Likewise, Njord and Mokosh share a deeper, more holistic connection to the land and its bounty. Njord's dominion over both the sea and the earth reflects the interdependence of all the forces that allow life to thrive. Mokosh, with her care for the earth's soil, ensures that the fertility of the land is nurtured and protected. There are subtle emotional and spiritual connections between the gods as well, reflected in the ways they are worshipped and the rituals that honor them. The people would offer sacrifices to Freyr for good harvests, not just in the form of crops, but through acts of fertility, such as marriage and childbirth. Similarly, Dazbog's light was celebrated in rituals that honored the sun's role in the earth's prosperity. Mokosh's worship, on the other hand, was deeply tied to the practical aspects of agricultural life, offering thanks for the harvest and prayers for the protection of crops. The rituals surrounding these gods were designed to align humanity's efforts with the cycles of the earth, to honor the gods and ensure their blessings were passed on to the community. What binds these gods together, across two different cultures, is their essential connection to the earth's fertility and the prosperity of the people. Whether it is the sun that rises and sets, the rains that fall upon the earth, or the harvest that follows, the gods of the harvest in both the Norse and Slavic traditions are the lifeblood of human existence. They are not distant or detached from the lives of their worshippers, but rather, they are intimately tied to the rhythms of daily life, ensuring that sustenance and abundance are always within reach. Through their blessings, life flows, death fades, and the earth continues its eternal dance of growth and renewal. The pantheons of both the Norse and Slavic mythologies are intricate webs of gods and goddesses, each with their own roles, domains, and interrelations. These divine hierarchies reflect the cultural values and the social structures of the peoples who revered them. Both pantheons display a careful organization of divine figures, from supreme gods at the top to more specialized deities below. However, the ways in which these gods relate to one another and the forces they govern show deep cultural differences, as well as similarities that suggest an underlying archetypal structure across both mythologies. In the Norse pantheon, the highest gods are part of two main families, the Aesir and the Vanir. The Aesir are the gods of war, governance, and order, while the Vanir represent fertility, prosperity, and nature. The initial conflict between these two groups of gods culminates in a peace agreement that forms the foundation for the hierarchy. Odin, the All-Father, stands at the top of the Aesir, a wise and all-knowing figure, reigning over Asgard with absolute authority. He is not just a god of power, but a god of sacrifice and knowledge, seeking wisdom through trials and even self-inflicted suffering. Odin's primary responsibility is the maintenance of cosmic order, overseeing the 9 realms and ensuring that balance is kept. The other Aesir gods, such as Thor, the thunder god, and Frigg, the goddess of marriage and motherhood, occupy important positions within the pantheon. Thor, with his strength and power, is a protector of both gods and mortals, and his relationships with other gods reflect the martial and defensive nature of his role. Frigg, Odin's wife, represents the nurturing and protective aspects of life, maintaining the hearth and home as well as the divine family. Beneath them, there are other gods like Tyr, the god of justice and war, and Balder, the god of light and purity, each contributing their individual influence to maintain order, justice, and peace within the cosmos. Beneath the Aesir, there are gods and goddesses who are more specialized, often tied to specific aspects of life, nature, and human experience. Freyr and Freya, for example, while originally part of the Vanir, become integrated into the Aesir after the peace agreement. These gods represent fertility, love, and prosperity, and, as such, their roles are not about conflict and governance, but about ensuring the cycles of life continue smoothly. These relationships among the gods reveal a hierarchy where power and authority are balanced by domains of influence, war and order at the top, followed by love, fertility, and natural cycles that sustain life. In contrast, the Slavic pantheon is less rigid in its structure, but there is still a clear sense of hierarchy. The supreme deities in Slavic mythology are more often than not tied to natural forces, and they wield authority over both the heavens and the earth. At the head of this pantheon is Perun, the god of thunder and war, often considered the ruler of the heavens and the god who brings order to the chaos of the world. Perun's role is similar to that of Thor, and like Odin, he is a god of justice, martial prowess, and celestial power. However, where Odin's authority is tied to wisdom and foresight, Perun's is deeply connected to the immediacy of warfare and the defense of cosmic order. Unlike the more fragmented Norse pantheon, the Slavic pantheon often places a stronger emphasis on duality. The hierarchy exists not just between gods of the same category, e.g., gods of war, gods of fertility, but also between opposing forces that govern the world. For example, Perun, the god of lightning and war, is locked in eternal conflict with Velis, the god of the underworld, cattle, and commerce. Their cosmic battle, one that often manifests as thunder and rain, creates the rhythm of life and death in the Slavic worldview. This rivalry speaks to a structure where gods are not just guardians of individual realms, but active participants in maintaining a balance of opposing forces, ensuring that neither side becomes too dominant. The Slavic pantheon also features gods like Dazbog, the sun god, who serves as an important figure in both agriculture and the cycle of life, akin to Freyr in the Norse tradition. Dazbog is viewed as a generous god, whose warmth and light sustain life on earth. Alongside him stands Mokosh, the goddess of fertility, women, and the earth, who is often seen as a mother figure to the people, much like Frigg or Freya in Norse mythology. The roles of these gods often blend, with different deities overseeing aspects of life and death, the seasons, and the connections between the mortal and divine realms. Despite the apparent differences, there are significant similarities in how the gods of both pantheons relate to each other. Both traditions emphasize the importance of balance within the pantheon, with gods ruling over various realms that are interconnected in a cosmic web. The Norse Aesir and the Slavic gods are not isolated in their roles; their actions impact the world of mortals and the natural world alike. There is a recognition of the necessity of order in both pantheons, but there is also the understanding that chaos, destruction, and change are essential to the overall balance. Just as Loki disrupts the balance of the Aesir, Veles, the trickster god of the Slavs, plays a similar role in upending the status quo, though his role is often tied to the forces of the underworld. Additionally, both pantheons feature deities who operate in roles of transition. Loki's relationship with the other gods, especially his eventual role in Ragnarok, mirrors the role of Veles, whose interactions with Perun lead to an eternal cosmic battle. These figures, while disruptive and often at odds with the other gods, serve a greater purpose in maintaining balance by challenging the very forces they threaten to destroy. Both pantheons also recognize the importance of the feminine divine. While the Norse gods such as Frigg and Freya hold crucial roles in love, fertility, and war, the Slavic pantheon gives similar importance to goddesses like Mokosh, who presides over fertility and agriculture, and Radna, who is associated with the earth and the nurturing of life. These female deities emphasize the cyclical and nurturing aspects of nature, highlighting the interconnectedness between life and death, growth and decay, and creation and destruction. The hierarchies in both pantheons also reflect the deeply ingrained cultural values of the people. The Norse gods, with their emphasis on war, wisdom, and law, represent a society that values strength, honor, and self-sacrifice. The Slavic gods, while also warrior deities like Perun, place a stronger emphasis on nature and community, with gods like Dazbog and Mokosh symbolizing the earth's fertility and the interconnectedness of all living things. In both mythologies, however, it is the interplay of forces, life and death, order and chaos, fertility and destruction, that forms the backbone of the divine hierarchy. The gods do not exist in isolation from one another. Instead, they are tied together through cosmic relationships that reflect the very essence of existence itself, an endless cycle of balance, growth, decay, and renewal. This dynamic interplay among gods of different domains creates an intricate, nuanced structure, ensuring that no force becomes too powerful or dominant. Each deity's role, whether in war, harvest, or trickery, is integral to the larger picture, forming a pantheon that is both a reflection of the natural world and the human experience. The air crackles with tension as towering figures loom in the distance, their massive forms shadowing the earth beneath them. In the worlds of both Norse and Slavic mythologies, these colossal beings, giants and titans, are more than just immense creatures of brute force. They are ancient, primal forces of nature, the embodiment of chaos, destruction, and often, the antithesis of divine order. Their presence in these mythologies is not simply as antagonists, but as crucial figures in the cosmic balance, representing the untamable and wild forces of the world. In Norse mythology, the giants, known as Jötnar, or Jotuns, are the primordial beings that predate the gods themselves. Born from the chaotic and wild Ginnungagap, the great void between fire and ice, these giants are creatures of the untamed natural world. They are often in direct opposition to the gods of Asgard, symbolizing disorder, destruction, and the untamed forces of nature. The Jötnar live in Jotunheim, a realm as wild and chaotic as they are, an untamed land of mountains, forests, and icy expanses, far removed from the orderly realms of the gods. Loki, the trickster god, is one of the most famous figures among the giants. Though he is often associated with the Aesir, Loki is a Jotun by birth, and his complex relationship with the gods reflects the deeper tension between order and chaos. Loki is both a helper and a hindrance to the gods, at times assisting them in achieving their goals and at other times betraying them. His very existence serves as a reminder that chaos, though often a destructive force, is also a necessary component of balance. Loki's trickster nature, his shapeshifting, and his ability to disrupt the peace between gods and mortals illustrate the power of the Jötnar to stir disorder in the world. The most infamous of the Jötnar, however, is Ymir, the first of all giants, from whom all other giants are descended. Ymir was born from the primordial elements of fire and ice, and his death marked the creation of the world. When the gods, led by Odin, slew Ymir, his body was used to form the earth, his blood became the seas, his bones the mountains, and his skull the heavens. The death of Ymir signifies a cosmic shift, the overthrow of chaos and the establishment of order. Yet, even in death, Ymir's legacy lives on. His descendants, the giants, are constant threats to the gods, ever seeking to disrupt the harmony that the gods work tirelessly to maintain. This eternal struggle between the gods and the giants is a central theme in Norse mythology, culminating in Ragnarok, the great battle where the forces of chaos, led by the giants, will rise against the gods, signaling the end of the world. The giants' role in Norse myth is not confined to destruction, however. They represent the necessary counterbalance to the gods. Without them, the gods would have no challenge, no reason to fight for order and balance. The giants also embody the raw, untamed power of nature, the very forces of the earth that cannot be controlled or fully harnessed. The gods may rule over the skies and the heavens, but the giants are the stewards of the earth's primal, elemental forces. In Slavic mythology, the giants, though not as omnipresent as in Norse myths, still hold significant power. The Slavic equivalent of the giants are often depicted as monstrous beings who challenge the gods and heroes of the Slavic pantheon. One of the most notable figures in Slavic myth is the figure of the Zmej, a dragon-like creature that embodies chaos and destruction. The Zmej, much like the giants of Norse mythology, represents a threat to the order and balance of the world, challenging the hero figures like Debrinja. The Slavic titans are often personifications of natural forces such as storms, wild beasts, and even the elements themselves. In many ways, they are closer to the forces of nature than to any specific character in Slavic myth. For example, the force of winter and cold can be represented by monstrous, frost-covered beings, similar to the Jötnar's associations with cold and ice in Norse mythology. These titanic forces are often depicted as dangerous, uncaring entities that, when uncontrolled, can lay waste to civilizations and crops. Yet, in some tales, these beings are also forces of nature that bring renewal. Storms can clear the land, and cold can preserve the harvests until the next season. Slavic giants are not just mindless destroyers, however. They often play roles in testing the heroes and gods. In some legends, the giants represent challenges to be overcome. The heroes must defeat or outwit these beings to restore order to the world. Much like the struggle between the gods and giants in Norse myths, the titanic figures of Slavic folklore embody the deep struggle between creation and destruction, life and death, chaos and order. While the giants in Norse mythology are often seen as inherently evil or chaotic, the relationship between them and the gods is more nuanced. Some Jötnar are allies of the gods, and many have family ties to the gods. For example, the giantess Angerboa is the mother of three of the most fearsome beings in Norse mythology: the wolf Fenrir, the serpent Jormungandr, and Hel, the ruler of the underworld. These three beings, each a powerful force of chaos in their own right, are all linked to the gods, particularly to Odin, who, despite their destructive nature, has a direct connection with them. This familial connection is mirrored in Slavic mythology, where titans and heroes sometimes share familial ties. The gods themselves can be seen as both protectors and destroyers of the natural world, shaping the land while contending with the giants who seek to undo their work. Both pantheons highlight the relationship between creation and destruction, order and chaos, and the necessity of both in maintaining cosmic balance. The giants and titans in both mythologies serve as reminders of the untamable forces of nature, the primal forces that cannot be easily controlled. They embody the Earth's ancient power, wild, unpredictable, and often threatening. Yet, without these beings, there would be no true balance. The gods of order rely on the giants of chaos, for it is their very existence that sharpens the gods' power, their resolve, and their ability to maintain balance in the cosmos. The mythologies of the Norse and Slavs understand that the line between creation and destruction is razor-thin, and that both must exist in harmony to maintain the ever-turning wheel of the universe. The giants and titans, with their immense power, represent the eternal force of nature, relentless and unyielding, forever locked in a cosmic struggle with the gods. The air grows thick with mystery as we step quietly into the shadowy spaces between the realms of gods and men, where beings of ancient magic dwell, hidden from mortal eyes but ever present in the fabric of myth. In the mythologies of both the Norse and the Slavic, these creatures, elves, dwarves, and spirits like the domovoi, are not simply inhabitants of another world. They are guardians of the unseen, protectors of the natural world, and tricksters whose actions shape the lives of mortals in ways both subtle and profound. They walk in the spaces between the known and the unknown, revealing themselves only when necessary, often challenging the lives of those they encounter. In Norse mythology, elves are enigmatic and powerful beings whose presence is felt across the 9 realms. The Light Elves, or Ljósálfar, live in Alfheim, a realm that shines with an ethereal glow, a place where light permeates everything. These beings are often portrayed as ethereal and beautiful, their features glowing with a soft radiance, reflecting their connection to the celestial and the divine. The Light Elves are akin to spirits of nature, beautiful, graceful, and wise, attuned to the natural world and the magic that courses through it. They are often seen as messengers of the gods, serving in the divine courts of Asgard, or as protectors of the natural world. To encounter one of them is to witness something otherworldly, a glimpse of the divine that is both awe-inspiring and unsettling. But not all elves are of the radiant kind. The Dark Elves, or Svartalfar, are often associated with the subterranean realms of Svartalfheim, a world of darkness and shadows where the light of the heavens never touches. These Dark Elves are skilled craftsmen, master artisans who create objects of immense power and beauty, including Thor's hammer Mjolnir. The Dark Elves are less ethereal than their light counterparts, more earthy and grounded, their connection to the physical world far more pronounced. Unlike the Light Elves, who dwell in celestial realms, the Dark Elves work their magic from the hidden depths, crafting powerful artifacts and enchanting the very stones and metals of the earth. The interplay between the Light Elves and Dark Elves mirrors the balance between creation and destruction, beauty and danger, light and dark. While the Light Elves bring guidance and wisdom, the Dark Elves remind us of the hidden forces of the earth, forces that, when properly channeled, can create wondrous things, but can also be used for destruction. The two kinds of elves together embody the dual nature of magic, its ability to both create and destroy. In contrast, Slavic mythology is home to spirits that are deeply connected to the home, hearth, and the land, the domovoi being the most prominent of these. The domovoi is a household spirit, often depicted as an elderly man, with a long beard and a slightly mischievous air. He lives in the house, guarding the family and the land, ensuring the well-being of the people who dwell within. However, the domovoi is not a being to be taken lightly. While he is a protector, he can also be vengeful if disrespected. In the past, people would leave offerings of bread or milk at the threshold to keep the domovoi happy and prevent him from causing mischief or harm. His presence in the home serves as a reminder that the spiritual world is always watching, and that the balance between human actions and nature must always be respected. The domovoi is not alone in the Slavic spirit world. There are other spirits that occupy the liminal spaces of the forest and the fields. One such spirit is the Rusalka, a water nymph associated with lakes and rivers. The Rusalki are beautiful and beguiling, their appearances often enchanting to those who encounter them. However, the Rusalki, much like the Dark Elves of Norse myth, are not creatures to be trifled with. They are capable of luring men to their watery graves with their song. These spirits represent the uncontrollable power of nature, its beauty and danger, its capacity to nurture life and bring death in equal measure. Much like the elves in Norse mythology, these spirits in Slavic myth are not just fantastical creatures, they are embodiments of the forces that shape the natural world. They reflect the eternal dance between light and darkness, order and chaos, creation and destruction. Where the domovoi represents the protective spirit of the hearth, ensuring that the home is safe and that the land is fertile, the Rusalki remind us of the perilous beauty of nature, its ability to sustain and to destroy. In both mythologies, dwarfs play a similarly complex role, though they are more commonly associated with craftsmanship and the creation of powerful artifacts. The dwarves in Norse mythology, such as those who forged Thor's hammer Mjolnir, are master blacksmiths and artisans who dwell in Svartalfheim. They are often portrayed as short, stocky beings with immense strength and skill. While the Dark Elves of Norse myth are magicians and spellcasters, the dwarves are the creators, shaping the physical world with their hands. Their skill in forging objects of immense power is unparalleled, and their creations, like Mjolnir, the golden bristles of Sif's hair, and the ship Skidbladner are central to the success of the gods. In Slavic mythology, dwarves are also depicted as skilled craftsmen, though they are less frequently mentioned than their Norse counterparts. The Slavic dwarves, often referred to as Karakonzolos or Tkashii the Deathless, are beings that live beneath the earth or in hidden caves, creating treasures and magical items that are sometimes of great importance to the heroes and heroines of Slavic folklore. Like their Norse relatives, they represent the forces of the earth, channeling the power of the underground world to shape both the material and spiritual realms. The roles of elves, dwarves, and spirits like the domovoi and rusalka in both mythologies illustrate the deep connection between human life and the natural world, a world filled with beings who straddle the boundary between the mortal and the divine. They remind us that the forces of nature are not easily understood or controlled. The elves and spirits represent the delicate balance between light and dark, between the beauty and danger of the world around us. They are the guardians of the boundaries between realms, and in their presence, we find both protection and peril, creation and destruction, depending on how we treat the world they inhabit. These beings, whether they are the elves of Norse myth or the domovoi of Slavic lore, show us that the unseen forces of the world are not to be ignored. They are not mere creatures of fantasy, they are the very essence of nature itself, wild and unpredictable, ever present, shaping our lives in ways that we can't always see. And though they may remain hidden in the shadows, they are always watching, always waiting, ready to step into our world when the time is right. The earth shakes beneath the weight of legends, the air thick with the scent of smoke and fire, as two of the most fearsome creatures in myth rise from the depths of ancient stories, dragons and serpents. In both Norse and Slavic mythologies, these creatures are not just symbols of terror, they are powerful, elemental forces of destruction and transformation. Their vast, twisting forms coil through the fabric of both worlds, embodying chaos and the ever-present danger lurking just beyond the edges of human understanding. In Norse mythology, the serpent stands as a symbol of cosmic disruption, and none is more famous than Jormungandr, the world serpent. Born to the trickster god Loki and the giantess Angerboa, Jormungandr is destined to play a pivotal role in Ragnarok, the final battle of the gods. Wrapped around the world, Jormungandr is an immense serpent whose body stretches far enough to encircle Midgard, the world of humans, his tail biting into his own mouth. The image of Jormungandr, coiled and waiting, is a powerful one, representing the cycle of destruction and rebirth that defines both the world of the gods and the human realm. Jormungandr's role in the myth of Ragnarok is one of inevitability. When the final battle takes place, the serpent will uncoil from around the world and rise to fight Thor, the god of thunder. Their battle will be fierce, with Thor striking the serpent down, only to be struck by the serpent's venom and perish shortly after. This cyclical, destructive relationship between the serpent and the gods reflects the Norse belief in the inevitability of fate. The serpent, as a creature that exists in a constant loop, reflects the eternal nature of time, no beginning and no end. It is a creature of chaos, a being that causes disruption by merely existing, and yet, it is also a necessary force in the grand cycle of creation and destruction. Serpents, in Norse myth, also symbolize the dangers that lurk beneath the surface. While Jormungandr is the most famous, there are other serpents that serve as harbingers of doom, such as the venomous snake that resides in the well of wisdom guarded by the wise being, Mimir. These serpents embody the hidden dangers of the world, reminding us that not all that is seen is understood. They live in the dark crevices of the earth, where the unknown rules, waiting for their moment to strike. But like the Einherjar of the Norse, the warriors of the Slavic afterlife are also called upon when the world faces its greatest trial. The spirits of the dead are summoned to fight once more, to defend the living from the encroaching forces of chaos. These spirits, much like the Einherjar, return to the mortal realm when darkness looms, and their presence is seen as a blessing. They are warriors who will never truly rest, for their service is never truly finished. They are bound by honor and duty, and even in death, they continue to fulfill the roles they were born for. The concept of warriors of the afterlife in Slavic mythology also involves a deep connection with the natural world. As the dead journey to Nav, they must pass through various realms, each one representing a different aspect of the natural order. The warriors who enter this realm are said to be able to traverse these realms with ease, as they are attuned to the forces of nature. Some legends say that the souls of great warriors can even transform into animals or natural forces, becoming part of the landscape they once fought to protect. This transformation is not a loss of identity but a continuation of their role in the world, a return to the very essence of life itself. The warriors of the afterlife in both Norse and Slavic traditions are more than just spirits of the dead. They are symbols of sacrifice, of strength, and of honor. They are not bound by the rules of the mortal realm, yet they remain tethered to it, still fighting, still guarding, still guiding. These warriors do not simply fade into the darkness of death, they are transformed, reborn into new forms, and continue to protect those they left behind. In both mythologies, death is not a period but a continuation of life. The warriors of the afterlife are not mourned but celebrated. They are not gone but watching, guiding, waiting for the moment when their strength will once again be needed. They are reminders that even in the darkest times, the light of heroism, sacrifice, and honor will never truly fade. The warriors who have passed into the afterlife are never truly gone. They are with us, always, guarding the realms, standing ready to fight again when the time comes. The earth quakes, the skies darken, and a torrential downpour begins to flood the world. Water rises, swallowing everything in its path, and the very foundations of the earth seem to tremble with the weight of the deluge. In the midst of this catastrophic flood, the cries of humanity echo through the chaos, desperate for salvation. This is a story as old as the stars themselves, one that has haunted the dreams of people across cultures. From the great flood myths of Mesopotamia to the tales woven in the Nordic and Slavic traditions, the flood is not just a natural disaster, it is a divine reckoning, a cleansing of the earth, and a test of the will to survive. In Norse mythology, the story of the Great Flood is intimately tied to the creation and destruction of the world. It begins with the story of Ymir, the first being to exist in the Ginnungagap, the primordial void. From Ymir's body, the earth was created, and in the fullness of time, the gods came into being. But the flood that would come to shape the end of the world, Ragnarok, has its roots in a different kind of deluge. Before the final battle, it is said that the world will be consumed by water. The oceans will rise and swallow the land, as the forces of chaos pour forth from the depths, and the sky itself will crack open to release the rains that will cleanse the world. The Norse flood, however, is not merely a physical event. It is a symbol of the cosmic forces that are unleashed at the end of time. Just as water floods the earth, so too will the forces of chaos, the giants, the serpents, and the destructive powers of Loki's offspring, pour into the world, causing destruction and upheaval. The flood is a manifestation of the great conflict between order and chaos, between the gods and the forces that seek to destroy them. It is not only the earth that is flooded, but the very hearts of men, drowning their hopes, their dreams, and their bonds with the gods. In this myth, water represents both the cleansing and the end of an era, a return to the primal forces from which the world was born. But even as the flood threatens to wipe away everything, there are survivors. Some legends tell of a man named Bergelmir, a giant who, along with his wife, survives the flood by seeking refuge in a great boat. The boat drifts on the waters, carrying with it the last remnants of the old world. The survival of Bergelmir and his kin signals the possibility of a new beginning. Though the world has been destroyed, it is not entirely lost. The flood does not represent an eternal end, but a cyclical cleansing, after which new life can emerge. This idea of rebirth after destruction is echoed throughout Norse myth, where even after Ragnarok, the world is reborn, and new gods will rise to carry on the legacy of the old. In Slavic mythology, the flood takes on a similar role, one of destruction, renewal, and divine reckoning. The Slavic people have various flood myths, each with its own unique features, but they all share a common theme. The flood is a punishment for human hubris, a warning against greed and disrespect for the earth. One of the most well-known Slavic flood myths is that of the Great Deluge that destroyed the world before the creation of the current order. In this myth, the flood is caused by the gods, who have grown angry with humanity's disobedience and sin. The flood is a punishment for the moral corruption of humans, a cleansing of the earth that wipes away the old, corrupt ways and allows for the creation of a new, purer world. The Slavic flood is often seen as a cosmic event, one that affects not only the physical world but also the spiritual realms. The waters that rise are not just a cleansing of the earth but a test of faith. Those who survive the flood are seen as worthy of a new life, a new beginning, while those who perish are seen as being consumed by their own sins. In this myth, the flood is not just an end but a beginning, a renewal of the world, and a chance for humanity to start afresh. The survivors of the flood are tasked with rebuilding the earth, creating a new order, and living in harmony with the gods and the natural world. In some variations of the Slavic flood myth, the hero of the story is a god or a mortal who is chosen to survive the deluge and repopulate the earth. This hero is often depicted as a righteous figure, someone who has earned the favor of the gods through their actions or character. The hero may sail through the floodwaters, carrying with them the last remnants of life, a seed, a symbol of hope, or an artifact that will help them rebuild. In this way, the flood serves as both a trial and an opportunity, a moment of reckoning that will shape the future of the world. The flood myth in Slavic tradition is also deeply tied to the rhythms of nature and the seasons. The rise of the waters is often seen as a cyclical event, one that marks the transition from one era to the next. After the floodwaters recede, the earth is fertile again, ready to bear new life. The flood is a necessary force of nature, clearing the land of corruption and making way for new growth. In this way, the flood is both destructive and creative, a force of change that clears the old to make room for the new. In both Norse and Slavic flood myths, water represents a powerful force of change. It is a force that can destroy, but it is also a force that can purify and renew. The flood is not an isolated event but a turning point, a moment when the old world is washed away and a new one begins. Whether it is the divine reckoning that ushers in Ragnarok or the cleansing waters that prepare the earth for a new age in Slavic myth, the flood is a reminder that life is cyclical, and every end carries the seed of a new beginning. The survivors of the flood, whether they are the gods, the giants, or the heroes of the myths, carry with them the wisdom of the old world. They know that destruction is not the end, but the beginning of something new. As the waters recede, the earth begins to heal, and life begins anew. The flood, in all its power and terror, becomes a symbol of resilience, of hope, and of the eternal cycle of life and death. The waters may rise, but they will eventually fall, and with their retreat comes the promise of rebirth, a new world, a new chance, and a new beginning. The sky above burns with the roar of thunder, and the earth below trembles as if every living thing senses the impending clash. The clash of forces that has echoed through the very fabric of existence, one that cannot be avoided. The battle is not just physical, it is primal, a fight for the very soul of the world. It is a battle between light and dark, order and chaos, gods and giants. The eternal battle is not a singular event but an ongoing war, fought in realms both visible and hidden, woven into the very essence of life. It is a war where every victory comes at a cost, every loss carries the weight of creation itself. In Norse mythology, the eternal battle culminates in Ragnarok, the final confrontation between the gods and the forces of destruction. But long before the flames of that inevitable battle are ignited, the gods have been waging a constant struggle against the giants, the forces of chaos that threaten to unravel the world. From the time of the creation of the first beings, the gods have fought to maintain balance, to preserve order against the encroaching forces of entropy. The giants, embodiments of chaos, are ever present, their existence tied to the very foundation of the cosmos. The gods may have brought order to the universe, but the giants will never cease in their effort to tear it apart. It is said that Loki, the trickster god, will play a central role in the destruction of the gods, a betrayal that will tear the very heavens asunder. Loki, once an ally of the gods, will side with the giants, leading them in the final battle against his former kin. His children, Fenrir, the great wolf, Jormungandr, the world serpent, and Hel, the ruler of the underworld, will each have their part to play in the end of days. The gods will fall one by one, but they will not go quietly. Odin, the All-Father, will face the great wolf Fenrir, knowing that his death is inevitable. Thor will confront Jormungandr in a final, deadly battle that will take both their lives. Freyr will fall to Surtur, the fire giant, whose sword will be the instrument of his demise. And in the midst of the chaos, the earth itself will crack open, floods will rise, and the very stars will burn. Yet even in this dark, inevitable moment, there is hope. For after the battle, after the world has been ravaged by fire and destruction, a new world will emerge. A world where the sun will shine again, and the surviving gods will rebuild what was lost. In this way, the eternal battle is not just about destruction, it is about renewal. The gods, despite their fall, will rise again, and the cycle of life will continue. The eternal battle is not an end, but a transformation, a constant, unyielding clash between creation and chaos that drives the universe forward. In Slavic mythology, the battle between the forces of light and dark is also constant, though the specifics differ. The Slavic gods are locked in an eternal struggle with the forces of chaos and darkness that threaten to overwhelm the world. The god Perun, ruler of the sky and thunder, is the champion of light and order. He wields his mighty axe and strikes down those who threaten the harmony of the world. His rival is Velis, the god of the underworld, of cattle, and of chaos. Velis is a trickster, much like Loki, but his power is darker, more dangerous. He is a god of the earth, of the wilderness, of the forces that lie beneath the surface, waiting to break free. Perun and Velis are locked in a perpetual battle, each one fighting to maintain control of the world. The clash between them is often depicted as a cosmic struggle between the sky and the earth, with Perun's lightning striking down at Velis, who retreats into the earth, only to return and rise again. This battle mirrors the rhythms of nature, the clash of thunder and storm against the stillness of the earth, the cycle of life and death, light and dark. But it is not just the gods who are involved in this eternal conflict. The forces of nature, the storms, the trees, the rivers, are all drawn into the battle. It is a cosmic struggle that encompasses all of existence. In Slavic tradition, the battle between Perun and Velis also has a deeper, spiritual meaning. Perun represents order, the righteous path, and the divine will. Velis, on the other hand, represents the forces of chaos, disorder, and temptation. His tricks are meant to test humanity, to lead them astray, to lure them away from the path of virtue. The eternal battle between Perun and Velis is not just a fight for control of the world, it is a fight for the hearts and souls of the people. The outcome of this battle determines the fate of humanity. Will they stay true to the path of order and righteousness, or will they be swayed by the dark forces of chaos and temptation? Both Norse and Slavic mythologies depict this eternal battle as one that is both cosmic and deeply personal. The forces at war are not just gods and giants, they are reflections of the internal struggles that we all face, the constant pull between order and chaos, between good and evil, between creation and destruction. The gods themselves are not immune to this struggle. They are often depicted as flawed, as struggling with their own weaknesses, as they fight to maintain the balance of the world. The eternal battle is not a one-time event, it is a cycle that repeats over and over again, in different forms, throughout the ages. Each generation must face its own challenges, and each generation must fight its own battle to preserve the world. Yet in both mythologies, there is always a sense that the struggle is not without meaning. Despite the destruction and chaos that is wrought, the battle is ultimately a test of strength, of character, and of will. It is a reminder that life is never simple, that every victory comes at a price, and every defeat carries the potential for growth and renewal. The eternal battle is a symbol of life itself, of the constant struggle to maintain balance in a world that is always shifting and changing. And so, the battle rages on, in the hearts of gods and men alike. It is a battle that can never truly be won, for as soon as one side prevails, the other rises again. The forces of light and dark are locked in a cycle, forever intertwined, forever in motion. This is the true nature of the eternal battle. It is not about winning or losing, but about the eternal struggle that gives meaning to existence itself. It is a battle that will never end, because as long as there is life, there will always be something worth fighting for. There are moments in life when time seems to stand still. When the weight of existence itself presses down, and you can almost feel the universe pause, holding its breath, waiting for something to change. Death is inevitable, a shadow that lurks behind every living thing. Yet, from the cold embrace of death, there emerges something powerful and undeniable: rebirth. The cycle is unbreakable, relentless, a truth etched into the fabric of the world. And within the myths of the Slavic and Norse cultures, this cycle takes on a form both terrifying and awe-inspiring, because death is not the end, but the beginning of something new. In Norse mythology, death is not an end but a transformation. The gods themselves are well aware of their fate. Ragnarok, the end of the world, is an event foretold, where they will fall, their bodies broken, their blood spilled upon the ground. But even in their fall, there is the promise of something more. Odin, the All-Father, knows that his time will come when the wolf Fenrir will swallow him whole. Thor will face Jormungandr in a final battle that will cost him his life. Yet, despite the inevitable doom, there is a quiet acceptance of this fate. For the Norse gods, death is not a feared enemy. It is simply another part of the great cosmic cycle, a prelude to what will follow. But what follows is not emptiness. After the battle of Ragnarok, after the fires have consumed the world and the ashes settle, a new world will emerge from the wreckage, reborn from the destruction that once seemed all-encompassing. The gods who fall will rise again, reborn from the ashes, their roles shifting and their powers evolving. The world will be cleansed, but it will not be lost. Life will return, and the cycle of creation, destruction, and renewal will continue as it always has. This cycle, this eternal return, is a constant in Norse thought. Death is the closing of one chapter, and rebirth is the opening of the next. In the end, it is not the end, it is a promise of what is yet to come. And even as the gods face their doom, there are survivors among the mortals. Those who are deemed worthy, those who have lived in harmony with the gods, will survive Ragnarok and rebuild the world. These survivors are not immune to death, but their survival is a testament to the cyclical nature of life. Through their trials and losses, they have earned the right to see the rebirth of the world. And it is in this rebirth that the gods will find new strength, new purpose, and new hope. The battle may be lost, but the world does not end. It simply changes. In Slavic mythology, the cycles of death and rebirth are woven into the very fabric of the natural world. The rhythms of the seasons reflect this eternal dance. Spring follows winter, life follows death, and every year, the cycle repeats itself. But the Slavic pantheon also contains gods who represent this constant movement between death and rebirth. Perun, the god of the sky and thunder, represents the light, the force of creation. Velis, his great rival, embodies the earth, the dark, and the forces of chaos and death. When Perun strikes down Velis with his mighty axe, Velis retreats into the earth, into the underworld. But Velis does not stay there forever. Just as the earth falls into darkness during the winter, he returns every year, bringing with him the promise of death and renewal. This constant cycle is reflected not just in the natural world, but in the lives of the people. In the Slavic myth, the seasons are not just a pattern, they are a living, breathing process of death and rebirth. As the earth grows cold and dark, so too does the world fall into a kind of death. The trees lose their leaves, the animals go into hibernation, and the earth itself seems to sleep. But as the days grow longer and the snow melts, a new cycle begins. The seeds that have been buried in the soil begin to sprout. Life rises from the earth once more, reborn in the warmth of spring. The spirits of nature in Slavic myth also embody these cycles. The domovoi, the house spirit, is connected to the hearth and home, watching over the family. He is a protector, but also a reminder that life is fleeting. The spirits of ancestors, the dead who have moved on to the afterlife, are still a presence in the home, guiding and protecting the living. These spirits are not gone, they live on in the memories, in the rituals, and in the very bones of the earth itself. In this way, the Slavic view of death is not one of finality but one of continuity. Death is part of the great cycle, just as much a part of life as the waking hours are to the sleep that follows them. In both traditions, the interplay of life and death reflects a deeper understanding of the universe, an understanding that all things are interconnected, that the end of one thing is the beginning of another. There is no real separation between death and life, for both are parts of a greater whole. The world itself is an ever-turning wheel, and as it turns, it renews itself, giving rise to new possibilities, new life, new stories. This cycle is not always gentle. Death is not always a peaceful release. In both Norse and Slavic traditions, death often comes in battle, in moments of great sacrifice. The gods fight and fall, the mortals suffer and endure. But even in the most brutal of moments, there is a deeper truth, that death is not to be feared. It is simply a passage, a transformation. It is a necessary part of the cosmic order. And in the stories of the gods and the people, we see this truth reflected in every life. No one lives forever, and no one dies without a purpose. The world spins on, as it always has, as it always will. And as it spins, new life rises, and old life passes away, only to return in another form. The eternal cycles of death and rebirth are not a curse, they are a blessing. They remind us that even in the darkest times, in the face of loss and grief, there is always the possibility of renewal. The world may die, but it will always rise again. In every culture, there are stories that ignite the soul, tales that echo through time, carried on the winds of legend. They speak of warriors, of struggles, of triumphs and failures that shape the very essence of who we are. These heroic tales are more than just stories, they are the heartbeats of a people, the foundations upon which their identity is built. In both Norse and Slavic mythology, the heroic tales are woven with the same threads of courage, sacrifice, and destiny, each hero marked by a divine purpose that pulls them into the battles of gods and men alike. In the Norse world, the heroes are often born of the gods or favored by them, yet they are also flawed, bound by their human limitations. Their tales are not those of unyielding perfection, but of resilience in the face of inevitable fate. Take the story of Sigurd, the dragon slayer. Sigurd was not just a man, he was a force of nature, a hero bound by destiny to slay the great dragon Fafnir, who guarded a hoard of gold. But Sigurd's heroism was not found solely in his strength or bravery, it was in the choices he made, in the sacrifices he endured, and in the consequences that followed. In the world of the gods, where nothing is ever as simple as it seems, Sigurd's path was littered with betrayals, tragic losses, and a tragic understanding that even heroes cannot escape the grip of fate. And then there is Beowulf, another hero whose story is steeped in both light and darkness. Beowulf's battle with Grendel, the monstrous creature that terrorized the kingdom of the Danes, is a tale of raw power, of courage beyond measure. But it is not just the battle with Grendel that defines Beowulf, it's his journey. From the victory over the monster to his eventual fight with a fire-breathing dragon in his later years, Beowulf's story is one of the endless cycle of victory and loss, of aging and facing mortality. His heroism lies not only in his strength, but in his acceptance of the inevitable, the knowledge that, even in his final moments, his duty was to protect, to fight, to give everything for the greater good. And in the end, his tale becomes a legend, immortalized as the ultimate symbol of heroism in a world that demands sacrifice. The Norse gods themselves are no strangers to heroism, but their tales often reflect a deeper struggle, one not just for honor, but for survival. Thor, the mighty god of thunder, is perhaps the greatest of these figures. Known for his strength and courage, Thor's exploits against giants, serpents, and even the forces of chaos are legendary. But Thor's heroism was not without personal cost. He fought tirelessly to defend Midgard, the realm of men, from the forces that threatened it. Yet, with every victory, he knew that the end was always drawing closer, that the final battle, Ragnarok, would one day come. In Thor, the Norse people saw the struggle against inevitability, the unyielding fight against the forces that would destroy everything, even if it meant personal sacrifice. In Slavic mythology, the heroes, too, rise against forces both natural and supernatural, their courage driven by loyalty to family, honor, and the land itself. One of the most revered heroes is Dobrynya Nikitic, a knight of immense strength and valor. His tales are those of loyalty to his people, of bravery in the face of overwhelming odds, and of love that transcends the boundaries of time. In his story, Dobrynya faces off against a dragon, but unlike the dragons of the Norse world, this dragon is a symbol of chaos, of destruction, an embodiment of the very forces that threaten to tear apart the harmony of the Slavic world. In overcoming such monstrous forces, Dobrynya is not just a hero for his strength, it is his heart, his deep sense of justice, that elevates him. He embodies the balance between strength and wisdom, the delicate line between protector and avenger. Similarly, the story of Ilya Muromets, another towering hero of Slavic legend, speaks to the timeless theme of overcoming adversity. Born crippled, Ilya's life seemed doomed before it even began. But through divine intervention, he is healed, and in turn, he becomes the greatest of warriors, defending his people from evil spirits, foreign invaders, and even the wrath of gods themselves. His story is one of personal transformation, a reminder that even the most unlikely hero can rise to greatness. Ilya is more than a fighter, he is a symbol of redemption, of the idea that anyone can find their path to greatness, no matter the darkness that threatens to swallow them whole. The warriors of the Slavic world are often driven by their connection to the earth, to their homeland. Where the Norse heroes might face their foes with the weight of prophecy hanging over them, Slavic heroes battle because of their love for the world around them. They fight for their families, their villages, their gods. In these myths, heroism is not a solitary pursuit, but a communal one. The gods, spirits, and the land itself play a role in shaping these heroes. And it is this connection, the deep, unbreakable bond with the earth, that gives their stories their heart. Whether fighting the creatures of the underworld or defending against invaders, these heroes know that their fate is intertwined with the land they protect. But the battle for the land is not always physical. Often, the greatest heroes are those who sacrifice the most, those who face the greatest personal loss. The Slavic myths remind us that heroism is not about glory or fame, it is about sacrifice, about being willing to give everything for the greater good, even if it means facing one's own destruction. Much like the Norse heroes, the Slavic warriors are aware of their mortality, yet they press on, knowing that their actions will echo through the ages, shaping the future of their people. These heroic tales, whether of Sigurd's tragic rise, Beowulf's battle against time, Dobrynya's undying courage, or Ilya Muromets' redemption, are not merely the stuff of legend. They are a reflection of the human spirit, of our deepest desires and fears, our capacity for greatness, and our inevitable fall. They speak to the eternal struggle between light and dark, between good and evil, between order and chaos. In every hero's journey, there is a lesson to be learned, a truth to be understood, and a legacy to be carried forward. Through them, we see the reflection of our own struggles, our own victories, our own failures. The gods, the heroes, they are not just distant figures in ancient stories. They are us. We, too, must face our own dragons, our own battles, our own inevitable endings. But like the heroes of old, we can choose how we fight, how we rise, and what legacy we leave behind. And perhaps, in the end, that is the truest heroism of all. The line between the magical and the mundane is one of the most fascinating in the world of myth. In both Norse and Slavic traditions, the gods, spirits, and forces of nature are never distant, detached entities. They are woven into the very fabric of everyday life, their presence felt in the smallest of moments, and the most mundane of tasks. The mundane, in fact, is not separate from the magical. It is the stage upon which the divine performs its endless dance, both intertwined, both necessary, both shaping one another in subtle ways. In the Norse world, the gods live in a world not unlike our own, though one more vibrant with magic, chaos, and larger-than-life struggles. There is no clear division between what is human and what is divine. The gods walk the earth, their paths crossing with mortals more often than one might think. Thor, for example, is not some far-off god in an unreachable realm. He is a presence on the earth, hammer in hand, striking down the giants that threaten the order of the world. His thunder is not only a celestial occurrence, it is the rumble of his power, the sound of his wrath echoing across the land, as he defends Midgard from the forces of chaos. Yet, even in his grandest moments, Thor's struggles are often human in their nature. His battles are not just with giants, they are with his own flaws, with his inability to always understand the world around him. There is a sense of the mundane in his character. He is often portrayed as being somewhat simple-minded, prone to impulsive decisions and rash actions. This is a god who, despite his vast power, is still very much a part of the human condition. His failures, his moments of weakness, his struggles to balance the divine and the mortal make him more relatable, more human. In Thor, the magical world is not a distant dream, it is tangible, immediate, and filled with imperfections that echo the lives of those who worship him. On the other side, the trickster Loki embodies the very essence of how the magical and the mundane collide. Loki is not just a god of mischief and chaos, he is the embodiment of human flaws and contradictions. His antics, stealing the goddess Idun's apples, turning into a mare to bear the horse Sleipnir, are often born of very human desires, jealousy, vanity, and the urge for personal gain. Yet, Loki's actions ripple through the divine world, affecting not only the gods but the very balance of the universe itself. He is a reminder that the mundane world, the petty squabbles, the personal desires, are never far from the divine. Magic is as much a force of destruction as it is one of creation. Loki is the very blur between the two, constantly shifting between the magical and the human, forcing the world around him to reckon with the consequences. In the Slavic world, the magical and the mundane are also inseparable. Life is not defined by the separation of the earthly and the divine. Instead, the two coexist, constantly influencing one another. The domovoi, the spirit of the household, is one of the most beloved of all Slavic mythological figures. He is both protector and guide, living in the hearth of the home, ensuring that the household is safe and prosperous. Yet, his power is not separate from the lives of those who live there. He is a reminder that the sacred is found in the simplest of places, in the meal shared around the table, in the warmth of the fire, in the daily rituals that form the rhythm of life. The mundane chores of sweeping the floor or tending the fire are acts of devotion in the eyes of the domovoi. To live in harmony with the household spirit is to live in harmony with the magic that pulses beneath the surface of the everyday. But even the dark forces of the Slavic world, like the powerful witch Baba Yaga, are bound to the mundane world in ways that make them all the more terrifying. Baba Yaga's house, perched on chicken legs, is both a place of unimaginable power and an ordinary dwelling. It is a house that could be anywhere, on any road, in any village. The magical is always there, just beneath the surface, waiting for the unwary traveler. To cross paths with Baba Yaga is to step into a world where the mundane becomes enchanted and the enchanted becomes dangerous. The worlds of spirits, deities, and humans are not separate in Slavic myth, they are intertwined, and it is the threads of magic woven into the everyday that create the foundation for the extraordinary to emerge. The magical and the mundane are also reflected in the natural world. In Norse mythology, the land itself is sacred. The trees, rivers, and mountains are inhabited by spirits, each of them a manifestation of the divine. The great Yggdrasil, the world tree, stands at the center of all existence, its roots stretching into the underworld, its branches reaching into the heavens. But this tree is not some far-off ideal, it is a part of the world we inhabit. The oak, the ash, and the yew trees that dot the land are all echoes of this great sacred tree, reminders that the divine is everywhere, hidden in plain sight. In the Slavic world, the forests are alive with magic. The woods are not simply a backdrop to human life, they are a space where the forces of nature, both benign and malevolent, hold sway. The forest is home to the Leshy, the guardian spirit, a creature who can be both helpful and dangerous, depending on the respect shown to him. The forest represents the untamed, the wild, the place where the mundane rules of civilization do not apply. It is a space where humans are reminded that the magic of the world is always there, lurking in the trees, in the undergrowth, in the silence between the sounds. And in that silence, there are whispers of something much larger than the everyday struggles of life, a reminder that the world, even at its most mundane, is filled with forces beyond our comprehension. The interplay between the magical and the mundane is, at its core, a reflection of the human experience. magic is not something distant, something confined to mythological stories. It is a part of the world we live in, woven into the very fabric of our lives. Whether it is the protection of the domovoi, the wisdom of the trees, or the destructive power of the gods, the magical is never far from the mundane. Every task, every ritual, every breath we take carries with it the potential for the divine to break through, to remind us that the world is not as ordinary as it seems. In the end, the magical is not a separate world, it is the lens through which we see the mundane. And the mundane is not just ordinary, it is the stage upon which the gods walk, where every small action ripples out into the cosmos, where magic is born in the most unexpected of places. The worlds of the magical and the mundane are not opposing forces, they are two sides of the same coin, endlessly shaping and defining each other. And in their balance, we find the deepest truths about ourselves. The flickering light of a bonfire casts shadows on the earth, the scent of burning wood mingling with offerings of grain, meat, and mead. These rituals, performed under the open sky or deep within sacred groves, pulse with a sense of connection between the living and the divine, the past and the present. For both Norse and Slavic peoples, pagan rituals were not merely acts of devotion, they were lifelines, binding their fragile human existence to the mighty forces that governed the cosmos. In the Norse tradition, rituals often centered around the gods' favor, the cycles of the seasons, and the needs of the community. At the heart of these ceremonies was sacrifice, or blot, a sacred act to nourish the bond between mortals and the divine. Animals, most often pigs, goats, or horses, were offered, their blood a vital conduit of life and gratitude. The spilled blood, known as hlot, held immense significance, believed to carry the essence of the sacrifice to the gods. This blood was carefully collected in bowls and used to consecrate altars, statues, and even the gathered worshippers themselves, who were sprinkled in the ritual act of hlodvig. These gatherings were deeply communal. The blot was as much a feast as it was an act of devotion. After the sacrifice, the meat was cooked and shared among the participants in a sacred meal. It was a moment where the divine and the mortal intersected, where the gods dined in spirit alongside their people. The shared meal reinforced bonds within the community, reminding them that their survival depended not only on the gods' blessings but also on their unity as a people. The timing of rituals often aligned with key moments in the agricultural or cosmic calendar. During Yule, the midwinter festival, sacrifices were made to Odin and other gods to ensure the return of the sun and the fertility of the earth. The bonfires burned bright against the dark Scandinavian winter, symbolizing the eternal struggle between light and darkness. Offerings of mead and ale, brewed from the grain that was the lifeblood of the community, were poured out to the gods as a gesture of gratitude and hope. In contrast, Slavic rituals also revolved around the cycles of nature and the relationship between humans and the spiritual world. Central to these practices was the deep respect for the land and its bounty. The Slavic gods, while powerful, were seen as close to the earth, deeply intertwined with the elements. Rituals often occurred in sacred groves known as kapishcha, where idols of the gods stood amidst the trees. These spaces were untouched by axes or plows, a reminder that the gods were not apart from the natural world, they were its essence. Sacrifices, or zerdva, were offerings that bridged the mortal and divine worlds. While animals were often offered, as in the Norse tradition, the Slavic people also gave crops, bread, and symbolic items. Honey, milk, and eggs, symbols of life and sustenance, were poured onto the ground as libations to the earth deities. Grain, the essence of life and labor, was burned in ceremonial fires, its smoke carrying prayers and gratitude to the heavens. Seasonal festivals played a key role in Slavic rituals, each marking the eternal cycle of life, death, and rebirth. During Kupala night, the summer solstice celebration, rituals honored the forces of fertility, fire, and water. Bonfires blazed under the midsummer moon, and people leaped through the flames in acts of purification and courage. Offerings were thrown into the rivers, and wreaths of flowers floated downstream, carrying prayers for love, health, and abundance. Perhaps one of the most striking aspects of Slavic ritual life was the relationship with the rusalka, spirits of water and nature. These entities, while sometimes malevolent, were also seen as protectors of natural harmony. Rituals to appease or honor them often included the offering of flowers, food, or even songs sung in their name. These acts were less about fear and more about respect, recognizing the balance between human life and the unseen forces that governed the natural world. The Norse and Slavic peoples both understood sacrifice not as a loss, but as a transformative act. The burning of offerings, whether an animal, a loaf of bread, or a precious mead, was not destruction, it was a release. The physical transformed into the spiritual, smoke rising to the heavens, blood seeping into the earth, feeding the gods and ensuring the balance of the world. In their sacrifices, both cultures recognized a simple but profound truth: to take from the world, one must also give. Rituals often carried an air of solemnity, but they were not always grim. Both Norse and Slavic ceremonies were filled with song, dance, and laughter, expressions of life's fullness and gratitude for its blessings. These were moments when the boundaries between the human and the divine blurred, when God seemed closer, their presence felt in the rustling leaves, the crackling flames, and the rhythmic chants of the worshippers. Still, there were darker rituals, times when the stakes were higher, and the gods seemed further away. In Norse mythology, tales of human sacrifice are not unheard of, though they were rare and reserved for moments of extreme need. The saga of King Aun, who sacrificed 9 of his sons to Odin in exchange for prolonged life, serves as a chilling reminder of the cost of divine favor. Among the Slavs, similar acts of devotion are shrouded in mystery and controversy, but there are whispers of human offerings to appease the gods in dire times. These rituals, whether solemn or joyous, brutal or tender, were acts of communion. They were a dialogue between humanity and the forces that shaped their world. For the Norse, they were conversations with gods who walked among them, fierce and fallible. For the Slavs, they were offerings to spirits and deities who were as much a part of the soil and sky as the people themselves. Even now, long after the fires have dimmed and the gods have faded into legend, the echoes of these rituals remain. The respect for the cycles of nature, the understanding that life requires balance and sacrifice, and the desire to honor something greater than oneself, they endure. And in these echoes, the connection between the magical and the mundane, the mortal and the divine, lives on. In the quiet moments before a ritual begins, a figure steps forward, distinct from the crowd. In their hands are tools of ancient power, a staff, a bowl of herbs, perhaps runes or sacred texts. Their voice carries the weight of worlds unseen, and when they speak, it is not just their own words, but the voices of gods, spirits, and ancestors that seem to echo through the air. These are the priests and shamans of Norse and Slavic traditions, the Valvas and Folkvi, mystics who serve as bridges between the mortal and the divine. In Norse mythology, the Valva is a seeress, a woman of immense spiritual power. She is not bound to any single community but often roams, a wanderer who carries the wisdom of the gods and the secrets of the cosmos. The Valva's most potent gift is her ability to practice Sigr, an ancient form of magic that allows her to see into the future and influence the threads of fate. Sigr is not merely a skill, it is a calling, demanding a deep connection to the spiritual realm and an ability to navigate the chaotic forces of destiny. The Valva's rituals are mesmerizing, even unsettling, to witness. She enters a trance, her voice rising and falling in rhythm as she chants incantations and songs of old. Her companions may form a circle around her, offering chants or drumming to guide her through the veils of reality. In this altered state, the Valva travels beyond the boundaries of the physical world, seeking guidance from the gods or glimpses of what is yet to come. Her words, spoken upon her return, are treated with reverence and caution. They may carry hope, warning, or inevitability, but they always hold power. The Valva's role is deeply tied to the Norse understanding of fate. Life is a tapestry woven by the Norns, and the Valva is one who can interpret its patterns. Her visions are sought in times of crisis, when the balance of a community or the destiny of a warrior hangs in the balance. Yet, her magic is not without its cost. The act of touching the threads of fate leaves its mark, isolating the Valva from the ordinary rhythms of life. She exists on the margins, her otherworldly nature both revered and feared. In Slavic traditions, the folkvi, priestly figures who served as intermediaries between the people and the divine, play a similarly pivotal role. The folkvi are not merely priests, they are also healers, diviners, and guardians of sacred knowledge. They are deeply connected to the natural world, understanding its rhythms and signs as manifestations of the god's will. Through their rituals, they interpret the movements of the sun, the patterns of the stars, and the omens carried on the wind. Unlike the itinerant Volva, the folkvi are often firmly rooted in their communities. They preside over the Kapishcha, the sacred groves and shrines where the Slavs worship their gods. These spaces are not merely places of prayer, they are living sanctuaries where the folkvi maintain the balance between the earthly and the divine. Through offerings, invocations, and sacred fires, the folkvi ensure that the gods remain present and favorable. The folkvi's rituals are deeply practical, yet infused with profound spirituality. In times of drought, they call upon Perun, the thunder god, to bring rain. Before harvest, they invoke Mokash, the earth goddess, to bless the fields. These acts are not just for the gods, but for the community, aligning human effort with divine will. The folkvi understand that the gods are not distant forces, but are present in the land, the sky, and the people themselves. One of the folkvi's most important duties is interpreting omens. A sudden storm, the flight of birds, or the behavior of animals, each carries meaning, a message from the gods. The folkvi translate these signs, offering guidance that can shape the course of lives. Their wisdom is sought not only in matters of worship, but also in decisions of war, governance, and even personal life. They are counselors as much as they are priests, holding a mirror to the divine in the choices of the mortal world. The Volva and the folkvi, though rooted in different cultures, share a profound similarity in their roles. Both serve as conduits for the divine, their lives dedicated to interpreting the unseen forces that shape existence. Both wield powers that inspire awe and fear, standing apart from those they serve yet being essential to their community's spiritual lives. Both must bear the weight of their knowledge, knowing that to glimpse the divine is also to carry its burden. Yet, the differences between them are equally striking. The Volva's magic is deeply personal, her visions shaped by the chaos of siege and her solitary path. Her power lies in her ability to navigate the unknown, to reach beyond the boundaries of what can be seen and heard. The folkvi, by contrast, draw their strength from the harmony of the natural world and their connection to the community. Their rituals are rooted in the land, their wisdom in the cycles of the earth. For both the Norse and the Slavs, these mystics are not mere intermediaries, they are essential figures who embody the bond between human life and the divine. Their presence reminds the people that the gods are not abstract beings, but forces that breathe in the wind, grow in the earth, and thunder in the skies. The Volva and the folkvi are living links to the divine, their rituals ensuring that the mortal and the immortal remain intertwined. Even now, long after the worship of Odin and Perun has faded, their echoes remain. The Volva's chants and the folkvi's invocations live on in the myths and folk traditions that have survived the centuries. Their legacies remind us of a time when the veil between the worlds was thin, and those who could see beyond it were both guides and guardians of the mysteries. The chill of midwinter clings to the earth, the air heavy with the scent of pine and smoke. Underneath the expansive night sky, lit by stars and the faint shimmer of the aurora, people gather around blazing fires. Their faces glow with anticipation and reverence, for these are no ordinary nights. They are sacred, marked by ancient rituals and celebrations that bridge the worlds of the living and the divine. In the lands of the Norse and the Slavs, two such festivals stand out, Yule and Kolyada, both pulsating with the rhythm of midwinter and the promise of life reborn. In the Norse lands, Yule is a time of profound significance. It is more than a festival, it is a cosmic turning point. The long, dark nights of winter threaten to swallow the world, and Yule becomes a celebration of light and resilience. The fire that burns in the hearth mirrors the unyielding sun, whose faint promise of return fills the hearts of the Norse people with hope. They call upon their gods to ensure the balance between darkness and light remains unbroken. Central to Yule is the Yule log, an immense piece of wood that burns through the darkest nights. This is no mere firewood, it is an offering and a talisman, symbolizing continuity and endurance. As it burns, families gather, their laughter and songs rising like prayers to the heavens. Each spark that leaps from the log carries a wish for the coming year, a small, fiery beacon against the encroaching cold. The gods are deeply entwined with Yule's rites. Odin, the Allfather, rides across the winter sky in the wild hunt, leading ghostly riders and spectral hounds in a procession that bridges the mortal and spirit worlds. This hunt is both awe-inspiring and ominous, a reminder of the unseen forces that rule the cosmos. Thor, with his hammer Mjolnir, is invoked to protect homes from harm, while Freyr, the god of fertility and abundance, is honored to ensure that the earth will bloom again when winter's grip loosens. In the Slavic lands, the festival of Kolyada holds a similar resonance. Like Yule, Kolyada occurs during the darkest days of the year, a time when the sun appears weakest and the world feels poised on the brink of eternal night. Yet, Kolyada is not a time for despair, it is a time for renewal, a celebration of light's inevitable return and the fertility it brings. Central to Kolyada are the songs that bear its name. Groups of kolyadniki, often young men or children, go from house to house, singing traditional carols that carry blessings for health, prosperity, and harmony. These songs are not just music, they are spells, imbued with the power to protect and nurture the community. In exchange, the singers receive small gifts, bread, sweets, or coins, a symbolic exchange that strengthens the bonds of mutual care. The imagery of Kolyada is deeply symbolic. The sun, personified as a divine figure, is often depicted as a wheel or a burning circle, rolling across the heavens. This imagery reflects the agricultural roots of Slavic society, where the cycles of nature and the seasons dictate the rhythm of life. The kolyadniki themselves may dress as animals, spirits, or even gods, blurring the line between the human and the otherworldly. Their costumes remind everyone that the boundaries between worlds are thin during this sacred time. Fire also plays a crucial role in Kolyada. Bonfires are lit in village squares or at the edges of fields, their flames casting long shadows over the snow-covered ground. These fires are not only practical, they are sacred, believed to ward off evil spirits and guide the sun back to its rightful place in the sky. Offerings of food, drink, or small tokens are thrown into the flames, their smoke carrying prayers skyward. Despite their cultural differences, Yule and Kolyada share an essence. They are festivals of survival and renewal, testaments to human resilience in the face of nature's harshest season. Both reflect a deep understanding of the cycles that govern life and a profound respect for the forces that lie beyond human control. In these festivals, the Norse and Slavic peoples acknowledge the fragility of their existence while celebrating their enduring connection to the divine. The fertility rites woven into these celebrations reveal the optimism and foresight of both cultures. While winter's cold still grips the land, these rites look ahead to spring, calling upon the gods to bless the earth and ensure its abundance. In the Norse tradition, Freyr's phallic imagery and association with harvests serve as reminders of the cyclical nature of life, death, and rebirth. In Kolyada, offerings of grain or bread are symbolic gestures to ensure the land's fertility, a pact between humans and the forces that govern the harvest. The communal aspects of both festivals are equally striking. Yule and Kolyada are not solitary acts of devotion but shared experiences that strengthen the bonds between individuals, families, and communities. Whether it is the shared feast around the Yule fire or the collective singing of kolyadniki, these rituals remind everyone that survival, both physical and spiritual, is a collective effort. The gods may govern the cosmos, but it is human unity that brings their blessings to life. As the fires burn low and the songs fade into the night, the participants of Yule and Kolyada know they have done more than honor their gods, they have reaffirmed their place in the grand cycle of existence. The dark days may linger, but within their hearts, a light kindles, mirroring the sun's slow but inevitable return. Through these ancient festivals, the Norse and Slavic peoples find not only the strength to endure but also the grace to celebrate, even in the heart of winter. The ground crunches underfoot as mourners gather, their breaths visible in the cold air. Silence settles over the scene, heavy and profound, as the final rites for the departed are prepared. For the Norse and Slavic peoples, death is not an end but a passage, a journey to realms unseen. The way the dead are honored reflects not just grief but also a reverence for the life they lived and the beliefs that shaped their worlds. In these moments, the rituals of ship burials and cremation mounds speak volumes, offering glimpses into how these cultures envisioned the transition from life to the afterlife. In the Norse tradition, the funeral is a spectacle, imbued with the grandeur befitting a warrior or chieftain. The ship burial is the pinnacle of this ceremony, a ritual that transcends practicality to embody mythic significance. A vessel, either an actual boat or a symbolic construction, serves as the centerpiece. The ship represents a means of travel, not across oceans, but through the realms of existence. The Norse believed in a cosmology where the soul might journey to Valhalla, Odin's Hall of Heroes, or perhaps to Hel, the domain of the goddess Hel, depending on how they lived and died. The deceased is placed aboard the ship, surrounded by the tools, weapons, and treasures they might need in the afterlife. These items are not mere possessions but extensions of the individual's essence. A warrior's sword is as much a part of his identity as his name, and its presence ensures his continued strength in the next world. For chieftains and nobles, the ship itself may be set aflame, the fire symbolizing purification and transformation. As the vessel drifts into the waters or becomes one with the flames, it carries the soul to its final destination, leaving behind both awe and a deep sense of loss among those who watch. Equally striking is the cremation mound, a practice shared by the Norse and certain Slavic traditions. Here, the body is placed atop a pyre, surrounded by offerings that reflect the person's life and status. The fire consumes the physical form, releasing the soul to its next phase. Ashes are often interred beneath an earthen mound, which becomes both a grave and a monument. These mounds are not merely burial sites, they are markers of memory and power, standing as silent witnesses to the lives of those who rest beneath them. The Slavic approach to death carries a different yet equally profound sense of reverence. Cremation is a common practice, deeply rooted in the belief that fire purifies and liberates. The Slavs often performed these rites near rivers, allowing the ashes to be scattered in water, a symbolic act of returning to the source. Rivers, like fire, are seen as pathways, veins of the earth that connect the mortal realm with the divine. The Slavs envision the afterlife in terms of realms like Nav, a shadowy world of the dead. The journey to Nav requires guidance, and burial rituals often include coins placed with the deceased, offerings to secure safe passage. Personal items, much like in Norse ship burials, accompany the dead to aid them in the afterlife. These tokens may range from tools to food, ensuring that the departed are prepared for whatever lies ahead. For the Slavic peoples, communal mourning plays a significant role. The funeral feast is as much a part of the ritual as the burial itself. This gathering is both solemn and celebratory, honoring the life lived and ensuring the soul's smooth transition. The feast serves as a bridge between the living and the dead, a time when the boundaries between the worlds grow thin. Toasts and songs often accompany the meal, each carrying a message of love, farewell, and hope. Despite their differences, Norse and Slavic burial practices share a profound respect for the journey of the soul. Both cultures see death as a continuation, not a cessation. The rituals serve as acts of guidance, ensuring the deceased finds their way and is equipped for what lies beyond. They also reflect the values of the living, bravery, honor, and the importance of community. Even the landscapes bear the weight of these beliefs. In Norse lands, burial mounds dot the countryside, standing as sentinels of memory and power. In Slavic territories, the ashes of the dead mingle with the rivers, becoming part of the land and its eternal cycles. These burial sites are not just physical spaces, but spiritual anchors, places where the living can connect with their ancestors and the divine. The journey to the afterlife is never walked alone in these traditions. The flames of the pyre, the sails of the ship, and the prayers of the living all carry the soul forward. These acts of farewell are imbued with a sense of continuity, a belief that death is but a single thread in the vast tapestry of existence. For those who remain behind, the rituals provide solace, a reminder that while the dead may have departed this world, their spirits endure in the realms beyond. The air is thick with mystery, the scent of herbs and smoke mingling as a figure moves purposefully through the shadows. Her hands, calloused yet delicate, weave patterns unseen, drawing the boundaries between the mundane and the mystical. In her eyes glimmers a light, ancient and unyielding, a reflection of the power that humankind has both feared and revered for centuries. Witchcraft and magic, for both the Norse and Slavs, are not merely tools or curiosities, they are lifelines to the divine, bridges to the unknown, and weapons against a world that often feels untamable. In the Norse tradition, the Volva stands at the heart of magical practice. She is no mere healer or fortune teller, she is a seer, a prophet, and a conduit for the will of the gods. Her craft, known as seer, is as enigmatic as it is powerful. With chants and spells, the Volva peers into the web of fate, glimpsing paths that others cannot see. Her work requires a communion with the divine, a dangerous and consuming act that places her on the margins of society, both revered and feared. The practice of seer is deeply tied to Odin and Freya, two gods who embody different aspects of magic. Odin's magic is harsh and unyielding, a quest for wisdom through sacrifice. He hangs upon the world tree, bleeding and broken, to gain the knowledge of the runes, symbols of power that can shape reality itself. Freya's magic, by contrast, is sensual and transformative, connected to fertility, love, and the cycles of life and death. Through these two deities, Norse magic becomes a spectrum, one of harsh truths and profound creation. The tools of the Volva are as much a part of her as her voice or her vision. She carries a staff, a symbol of her authority and a channel for her magic. Herbs, bones, and stones are her allies, each imbued with a significance that transcends their physical form. Rituals are performed under the open sky or in hidden groves, places where the veil between worlds is thinnest. The Volva's chants, carried on the wind, speak to the gods, the spirits, and the forces of nature, weaving a tapestry of power that binds the worlds together. In the Slavic lands, the figure of the folk emerges, a priest-shaman whose magic is deeply rooted in the cycles of the earth. While the Volva gazes into the cosmos, the folk draws his power from the soil beneath his feet and the rivers that carve the land. His craft is an intricate dance with the natural world, an attempt to maintain balance and harmony. The folk is a mediator between humans and the spirits that inhabit the world. Slavic beliefs teem with domovoi, leshy, and other beings who govern the unseen aspects of life. Through rituals, offerings, and invocations, the folk ensures these spirits remain allies rather than adversaries. Fire, water, and earth are sacred elements in his craft, each one holding keys to unlocking the hidden truths of existence. Unlike the Norse, whose magic often emphasizes fate and prophecy, Slavic magic leans heavily on protection and healing. The folk's chants and rituals ward off malevolent spirits and ensure the prosperity of the village. Spells are woven into daily life, into the knots of a belt, the patterns of embroidery, and the recipes of special breads baked for seasonal festivals. These acts of magic are not grand gestures but humble, persistent efforts to safeguard life. Women, too, play a central role in Slavic witchcraft. The Znakarka, or herbal healer, wields the power of plants and the wisdom of generations to heal the sick and guide the troubled. Her remedies are not merely medicinal, they are spiritual, blending the physical and the mystical. The Baba Yaga, a figure often misinterpreted as a simple hag, embodies a deeper magic. She is a guardian of thresholds, dwelling in her house on chicken legs at the edge of the forest. Those who approach her do so at great peril, for she is both the giver of wisdom and the harbinger of doom. The fear of witchcraft, shared by both Norse and Slavic societies, underscores the raw power it represents. Magic is not a neutral force, it is unpredictable, dangerous, and unbound by the laws of men. Yet it is this very danger that gives it its allure. To practice magic is to court risk, to wield something that can protect as easily as it can destroy. The common thread between these traditions is the way they intertwine magic with the sacred. Whether invoking Odin's runes or the spirits of the Slavic forests, the act of magic is an act of reverence, a reminder of humanity's small yet significant place within a vast and mysterious cosmos. Those who practice it, whether Volva or folk, walk a fine line between worlds, their every word and gesture charged with meaning. As the flames of the ritual fire crackle and the chants fade into silence, the sense of awe remains. Witchcraft and magic are not merely tools of power but expressions of a profound connection to something greater, something that hums beneath the surface of the everyday, waiting to be touched by those brave enough to reach for it. A quiet, unrelenting thread runs through the fabric of existence, weaving moments together into patterns beyond comprehension. It is invisible but inescapable, holding all life in its grasp. To the Norse and Slavic peoples, this thread is not just a metaphor, it is the essence of fate and destiny, forces as real and unyielding as the earth beneath their feet and the sky above their heads. To understand their myths is to feel the weight of inevitability, the pull of unseen hands guiding lives toward outcomes foretold yet still shrouded in mystery. For the Norse, fate is embodied by the Norns, three mysterious beings who dwell at the base of Yggdrasil, the great world tree. Urd, Verdandi, and Skuld, representing what has been, what is, and what will be, spin the threads of life for every being. Each thread is a life, and the Norns weave them into the grand tapestry of existence. They carve runes into the trunk of Yggdrasil, marking the fates of gods and mortals alike. Even the mighty Odin, who sacrificed his eye for wisdom, cannot escape their decrees. Fate in Norse thought is not a choice, it is a decree handed down by forces beyond mortal comprehension. This belief manifests most poignantly in the legend of Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods. The end of the world is not a distant possibility but a certainty etched into the runes. The gods know their doom is inevitable, yet they continue to fight, their defiance a testament to their strength and honor. Thor will battle Jormungandr, the great serpent, and fall. Odin will face Fenrir, the monstrous wolf, and perish. And still, they prepare. Their resistance is not to change fate but to meet it with dignity. In Slavic belief, fate takes a different yet equally powerful form. The threads of life are spun by the Rodzanis, often depicted as three sisters akin to the Norns. These spirits visit a newborn's cradle, whispering the child's destiny into existence. Like the Norse Norns, their decrees are immutable. Yet, Slavic myths often leave room for the role of human will, while fate lays the path, how one walks it matters greatly. A key aspect of Slavic fate lies in the concept of sudba, a term that encapsulates both destiny and fortune. Sudba is personal yet universal, a balance between predetermined outcomes and the agency of choice. A hero may be destined to face a dragon, but their courage, cunning, and resolve determine whether they prevail. It is this interplay between inevitability and effort that defines much of Slavic thought on destiny. The gods of both pantheons grapple with fate in ways that reflect their mortal followers. Odin, with all his wisdom, does not seek to change Ragnarok but to prepare for it, gathering warriors for Valhalla and seeking every scrap of knowledge about the world's end. Similarly, in Slavic lore, gods like Perun and Velis are often bound by cycles of conflict and reconciliation, their actions dictated by forces greater than themselves. The weight of fate is felt most keenly in the stories of heroes. In the Norse tradition, Sigurd is destined to slay the dragon Fafnir, a feat that will bring him glory and doom. His death is foretold, but his actions along the way, his bravery, his loyalty, and even his flaws, become the essence of his legend. In Slavic tales, the hero Dobrinja Nikitic faces trials that seem both fated and shaped by his choices. His strength and valor carve a path through the challenges laid before him, yet the shadow of his destiny looms large. Despite their inevitability, fate and destiny are not presented as cruel forces. Instead, they are intrinsic parts of existence, woven into the very nature of life. For the Norse, fate is as much a part of the cosmos as the branches of Yggdrasil or the roaring waves of the sea. To accept one's fate is to live in harmony with the world's truths, to find honor even in tragedy. For the Slavs, fate carries a sense of justice, a reminder that actions matter and that how one meets their destiny defines their legacy. This balance between inevitability and agency finds expression in everyday life. The runes carved by the Norse are not just symbols of fate but tools for understanding it. A rune drawn in divination offers a glimpse of what lies ahead, allowing the seeker to prepare. Slavic rituals, too, often seek to appease or align with fate, whether through offerings to spirits or blessings at key life events. These practices do not attempt to rewrite destiny but to navigate it with wisdom and grace. The power of fate in both mythologies lies not in its rigidity but in the way it invites reflection on life's meaning. The stories of gods and heroes, bound by destiny yet filled with vibrant agency, remind us that it is not the end that defines us but the path we take to reach it. Whether spun by the Norns or whispered by the Rodzinus, fate is a thread that binds all living things, pulling them towards something vast, eternal, and profoundly human. The clashing of steel rings in the air, a war cry echoing through the hills as warriors stand shoulder to shoulder, their eyes fierce, their hearts resolute. In this moment, victory and defeat blur into one singular force, a force that speaks of something deeper, an ancient code that transcends time. For both the Norse and Slavic peoples, the concept of honor is not just a word. It is a way of life, a driving force that shapes not only the warriors who fight but the very foundation of their societies. For the Norse, the warrior's path is shaped by heroic ethics steeped in the belief that life is a series of battles, both physical and spiritual. The Vikings, known for their ferocity, did not simply fight for land or spoils. They fought for glory, for the chance to be remembered forever, to earn a place in Valhalla, the Hall of Odin. In this sacred place, the bravest of warriors are honored, their deeds immortalized in song and legend. To die in battle was not seen as a tragedy, but a triumph, a gateway to eternal honor. Odin himself, the All-Father, is the embodiment of the warrior ethos. He is not merely a god of wisdom and magic, but a god of battle, seeking out warriors worthy of Valhalla. His sacred hall is not filled with those who die peacefully in their beds, but with those who face death head-on. The warriors in Valhalla are Einherjar, men and women who fought valiantly and are rewarded with the chance to continue fighting in the afterlife. Their days are filled with combat, sharpening their skills for the final battle, Ragnarok, when they will fight alongside the gods to stave off the end of the world. The Viking code of honor is not merely about killing or pillaging. It is about bravery, loyalty, and sacrifice. A warrior's honor is tied to his ability to fight with integrity, to protect his kin, and to give his all in the face of overwhelming odds. The idea of death before dishonor is paramount in Norse culture. A warrior who flees the battlefield or betrays his comrades does not just lose his life, he loses his honor, which is far worse than death. In Norse myth, heroes are often tested by their choices, and their moral fiber is weighed as much as their strength in battle. Parallel to this, in Slavic culture, the idea of honor in battle is just as revered, though the expression of it differs. Perun, the Slavic god of thunder and war, holds the same role as Odin does in Norse mythology, a figure of immense power, justice, and martial prowess. Perun leads the charge, wielding his axe to defend the realms from evil spirits and enemies. But where Norse warriors might see their honor as a personal, individual pursuit, the Slavic code often revolves around community and the protection of the land. The warrior is not just a lone hero seeking glory, but a protector of the people, a guardian of the sacred earth. In Slavic traditions, the Bogaters, the mighty knights and heroes, embody these principles. Their honor is tied not only to their personal valor, but to their role as defenders of the people. They serve their communities, fighting against invaders, mythic beasts, and supernatural forces, but they do so with an innate sense of duty and respect for the land they protect. Dobrynya Nikitic, one of the most revered Slavic heroes, exemplifies this ethic. His battles, filled with courage and strength, are not just personal quests, but struggles for the greater good, ensuring peace and prosperity for his people. Slavic warriors often fight not for glory or a place in the afterlife, but for justice and the preservation of harmony in the world. The idea of collective responsibility and protecting the land and people above all else is paramount. Honor is not just about individual accomplishment, but about the warrior's role in maintaining the balance between the human world and the supernatural. The hero does not seek death in battle, but life in service to those who cannot fight for themselves. This sense of collective honor is also tied to the deeply spiritual aspect of Slavic warrior ethics. The soul of the warrior is not just his own, but a reflection of the community. The Slavic belief in ancestral spirits means that each warrior fights not only for himself, but for those who have gone before him, ensuring that their legacy endures. To die without honor is to fail not only oneself, but also to dishonor the ancestors who watch over and guide the living. The duty of a warrior is sacred in both mythologies, but the cultural differences shine through when considering the motivations behind this sacred role. Norse warriors seek eternal glory through their deeds, their legacy woven into the very fabric of the cosmos by Odin himself. In contrast, Slavic warriors fight with a sense of duty to their people and their land, with an understanding that their actions affect not just the living but also the spirits of the ancestors who share in the responsibility for protecting the world. In both traditions, honor is not a passive trait, but an active pursuit. To be honorable is to stand tall, to fight for what is right, and to carry the weight of one's decisions through both triumph and defeat. For the Vikings, this often meant death in battle, a noble end that ensures their place in the halls of the gods. For the Slavs, honor is often tied to survival and protection, where the warrior stands as a shield between the world of the living and the forces that threaten it. Whether through the mead halls of Valhalla or the ancient forests where Slavic bogarters tread, the warrior's ethics and honor remain intertwined with the very soul of these cultures. The codes they followed were not just rules, they were lifeblood, shaping not only their actions but their identities. The cry of a warrior, in battle or in remembrance, reverberates through the ages as a reminder that honor is not a fleeting pursuit. It is the legacy each warrior leaves behind, inscribed not just in the history of their people, but in the hearts of those who remember. The world hums with opposing forces, each pulling in different directions yet bound by an invisible thread. Like the push and pull of the tides, day and night, life and death, these forces define not only the natural world but also the very essence of existence. In the mythologies of both the Norse and the Slavs, duality and balance are woven into the fabric of life itself, forces that cannot exist without each other, forces that shape the gods, heroes, and the very cosmos they inhabit. In Norse mythology, yin and yang exist within the gods themselves. Take Odin, for instance. He is both the seeker of knowledge and the god of war. His wisdom comes not just from learning but from sacrifice. His self-inflicted wounds and his willingness to trade his own eye for knowledge symbolize the balance of gain and loss. He is a god of both creation and destruction, wielding the power of the runes, symbols of deep knowledge and power that can both heal and harm, depending on how they are used. This balance of destruction and creation exists in all things, from the forging of the world to the final clash of Ragnarok, where gods will die, and the world will be reborn. But Odin is not alone in his duality. Thor, the god of thunder, is the protector of gods and humans alike, wielding his hammer to defend against the forces of chaos, yet he is also a symbol of the raw, untamed nature of power. Thunder itself is a force that can bring both life-giving rain and destructive storms. Thor, the bringer of thunder, embodies the delicate balance between the nurturing and destructive forces of nature. In the same vein, the Norse cosmos is built on balance. Yggdrasil, the world tree, stands at the center of the 9 realms, representing the axis upon which the universe turns. The tree is not only a symbol of life, but also of death, as its branches extend into realms of light and dark, life and death. Its roots reach deep into the underworld, where the dead dwell, while its leaves bathe in the light of the gods. The tree represents not just life, but the constant cycle of death and rebirth, a constant push and pull between opposing forces that sustain the cosmos. On the other side of the world, in the lands of the Slavs, a similar sense of duality runs deep within their belief systems. The Slavic gods themselves are often portrayed as both creators and destroyers, benevolent protectors and vengeful warriors. Perun, the thunder god, is a powerful force of justice, but he is also in constant opposition to Veles, the god of the underworld and chaos. Their eternal struggle for supremacy is a cosmic battle between order and disorder, light and darkness. It is a battle that shapes the fate of the world and one that can never truly be resolved. As long as the two gods are at odds, life will continue to exist in a state of delicate balance. Similarly, in Slavic myth, the idea of Mokosh, the goddess of fertility in the earth, is balanced by Morosko, the god of winter. Mokosh, the giver of life, nurtures the fields and ensures the prosperity of the people, but without Morosko, who brings the winter frost, the earth would not be able to rest and rejuvenate. Both are necessary for the cycle of life and death, for the growth of crops and the renewal of nature. Without winter, spring would lose its meaning. Without death, life would have no beginning. The balance between these two deities is vital, as it ensures that the rhythms of the earth remain intact, and the cycle of seasons continues uninterrupted. At the heart of the Slavic understanding of balance is the world itself, a world divided into realms of light and darkness, where day and night, summer and winter, are in eternal conflict, but also in harmony. The Nav, the realm of the dead, stands in stark contrast to Prav, the realm of the living, yet they are connected through the Yav, the earthly realm. This division of realms reflects the dual nature of the world, where life cannot exist without death, and death cannot exist without life. The living must honor the dead, for they are the ones who shape the present and protect the future. Duality and balance are also represented in the Slavic pantheon through the figure of Jarilo, the god of spring and fertility. He is reborn each year, a symbol of life's renewal, but he is also bound to the cycle of death. His death, as he falls into the underworld, is as necessary as his rebirth. This death and rebirth, much like the changing seasons, represents the balance of life, showing that the end of one cycle is the beginning of another. Without death, there can be no renewal. Without renewal, life becomes stagnant. The eternal cycle of birth, death, and rebirth governs the cosmos, and in this eternal ebb and flow, balance is maintained. In both mythologies, the struggle between dual forces is not just a cosmic battle, it is the very nature of existence. The gods themselves are a reflection of this balance, existing not as purely benevolent or purely malevolent beings, but as complex entities who embody both light and darkness. Their actions shape the worlds they inhabit, but they are also shaped by the forces of balance within their realms. This interplay of opposites, the warrior's strength and vulnerability, the god's wisdom and rage, the earth's fertility and death, shapes the stories told by both the Norse and Slavs. These stories remind us that life is not a single, linear journey. It is a dance of contradictions, a balance of forces constantly in motion. And in the space between these forces, where light meets dark, life meets death, the story of the universe unfolds. The truth of duality and balance is not that these forces exist in perfect harmony at all times. Rather, it is the tension between them, the push and pull, that keeps the world alive, keeps the gods on their thrones, and keeps heroes striving. Without the darkness, the light would be meaningless. Without the cold, the warmth would lose its comfort. And it is in this balance, this constant interplay, that life finds its meaning, and the gods and heroes find their place within it. The wind whispers through the trees, the river hums as it carves its path through the land, and the mountains stand resolute, watching over the people below. Nature is not a backdrop in the lives of humans in the world of myth. It is a living, breathing force, as alive as any god, as integral to the soul of humanity as the beating of a heart. In both Norse and Slavic mythologies, the relationship between humanity and nature is one of deep reverence, one that recognizes not just the power of nature, but its sacredness, its role as both protector and destroyer, nurturer and adversary. In Norse mythology, nature is a world unto itself, as varied and complex as the gods who inhabit it. The landscape is alive with forces of creation and destruction, with mountains that tremble and rivers that rage. The giants of Norse myth, the Jötnar, embody the wild, untamed forces of nature. They are not evil, nor are they inherently malicious, but they are a representation of the raw, chaotic aspects of the world, forces that cannot be controlled. Their realm, Jotunheim, is a place of constant upheaval, where the natural world is in a constant state of flux. And yet, this very chaos is necessary for the balance of the universe. It is the giants who, in many ways, maintain the equilibrium between order and disorder. For humans in the Norse world, nature is both a place of beauty and a harsh, unforgiving force. The Vikings themselves were born of nature's challenges, from the cold, barren coasts of Scandinavia, where they had to fight for survival against both the elements and rival clans. The gods themselves reflect this intimate connection to nature. Thor, the god of thunder, controls the elements, storms, lightning, and rain, using them as instruments of both destruction and protection. His hammer, Mjolnir, is the ultimate tool of balance, used to strike down chaos while ensuring the prosperity of the land through the rainstorms he sends to nourish the crops. Yet, despite the raw power of nature, Norse culture emphasized a deep respect for it. Nature's fury could not be tamed, only acknowledged. The Vikings, when they set out on their long voyages across the seas, did so not just with the tools to survive, but with rituals to honor the gods of the wind and the sea. Njord, the god of the sea and winds, was called upon to calm the waves, to guide their ships safely across treacherous waters. The seafarers knew they were but humble guests in the vastness of nature, subject to its whims, and thus honored it in both reverence and fear. They understood that nature was not something to be conquered, but something to coexist with, respecting its beauty, understanding its danger, and accepting its inevitability. In the Slavic worldview, nature holds an even more profound, almost spiritual, role in human life. For the Slavs, the world was alive with spirits. The forests, rivers, and fields were populated with a host of deities and entities, each representing different aspects of the natural world. These spirits were not abstract forces, they were living, conscious beings with whom humans had to maintain a close, respectful relationship. The domovoi, the household spirit, is the protector of the home, ensuring that the hearth stays warm and the crops grow strong. The Leshy, the spirit of the forest, is both a protector and a trickster, guiding hunters and travelers, but also leading them astray if they fail to show proper respect. Slavic people did not see nature as something to be exploited for human benefit, but as a sacred entity to be honored. The forest was not just a place of danger, but a living entity with its own will. It could offer shelter, food, and spiritual guidance, but it could also punish those who disrespected it. If a person ventured too deeply into the woods without proper rituals or offerings, they might find themselves lost, unable to escape the maze of trees. The forest, like nature itself, was both a nurturer and a punisher, reflecting the duality of the world, the balance between life and death, growth and decay. In the myths of the Slavic pantheon, the earth is portrayed as a living, nurturing mother. Mokosh, the goddess of fertility, represents the earth's ability to give life and sustain it. She is the guardian of the harvest, the protector of crops, and the goddess of the seasons. When the land flourishes, it is a reflection of her blessings, but when the land is barren, it is seen as a sign of her displeasure, a reminder of the need to maintain balance with the earth. The cycle of the seasons is central to the Slavic relationship with nature. Spring is a time of renewal, when the earth is reborn and crops are sown. Summer is the time of harvest, when the bounty of the earth is gathered. Autumn brings a time of preparation for the cold, and winter, though harsh, is a necessary period of rest for both the earth and its people. Much like the Norse, the Slavs believed in reciprocity with nature. Offerings and rituals were performed to honor the spirits of the land and ensure prosperity. The harvest was not simply a gift of nature, it was the result of human labor in partnership with the earth. The people knew that if they did not honor the natural world, they would not survive. The earth provided for them, but only if they gave back, maintaining the balance between them. For both the Norse and Slavic peoples, nature was not just a resource, it was sacred. The earth, the sky, the sea, the forest, all had spirits and gods that needed to be respected. This was not just a matter of survival, it was a matter of spiritual harmony. The gods were not distant, abstract beings, they were connected to the world around them, living in the forests, seas, and skies. In Odin's sacrifice on Yggdrasil, the tree of life, we see that even the gods themselves must give back to nature. Similarly, the Slavic gods reflect this same connection, from Perun's control over the weather to the spirits that dwell in the natural world. In both mythologies, humanity's relationship with nature is defined by an understanding that we are not separate from the world around us. We are part of it, bound by it, and dependent on it. The gods teach us to respect the forces of nature, to live in harmony with the land, to honor the elements that sustain life, and to understand that the balance we maintain with the earth will determine our survival. This is a truth that transcends time and culture, a truth that binds us all to the living world. In the end, we are not the masters of nature, we are simply its stewards, honoring the sacred connection we share with the land that gives us life. In the hearts of the cold forests, across the frozen plains, and over the rocky shores, a force was slowly beginning to stir, a force that would change the world forever. The old gods, the mighty forces of nature, and the ancient ways of life that had sustained people for centuries now found themselves under threat by a new and powerful force, Christianity. It arrived like a quiet whisper at first, a foreign voice amidst the hum of ancient rituals, yet it began to grow louder, more insistent, and soon its message reached into the hearts of even the most isolated villages. The early Christians, often with nothing more than the power of words and the promise of eternal life, began to spread their faith across the lands, challenging the old gods of the Norse and Slavic peoples. The spread of Christianity was not a smooth journey. It was not simply a matter of belief, it was a battle for the very soul of the land. The Christians had their teachings, their holy books, their idea of salvation, but the people of the north and the east were deeply entrenched in their own ways. They had their gods, their spirits, and their rituals. They lived in harmony with nature, their lives intertwined with the cycles of the seasons and the gods who governed them. The arrival of Christianity was seen by many as an alien force, a challenge to the world they knew, the world they had always trusted. In the Norse lands, the rise of Christianity was a slow but steady process. It was not just about religion, it was about power. The kings of the north, long steeped in the traditions of the old gods, began to see the political advantages of aligning with the new faith. The promise of unity, of a single God who ruled over all, appealed to rulers who sought to consolidate their power and create a more unified kingdom. But Christianity was more than just a political tool, it was a force that would eventually drive the old gods from their places of honor. The change did not come without resistance. Many still held on to the ways of the old world. Thor was a god of thunder, a protector of the people, and the god who wielded the hammer that struck down the giants. Odin, with his wisdom and power, was revered as the All-Father. The Norse people had seen the gods walk among them in the form of mighty warriors and powerful kings. Their stories were ingrained in their very being, passed down through generations. The idea that these gods would be replaced, their temples burned, their altars destroyed, it was a horrifying thought for many. The old ways had been their anchor, their way of understanding the world. Yet, slowly, the old gods began to fade into the shadows. The Vikings, once fierce in their devotion to Thor and Odin, began to turn their gaze towards the cross. It was not just a matter of belief, but a matter of survival. In the end, many of the kings who once stood proudly by the old gods saw the writing on the wall. The new religion was gaining ground, and to resist it meant to resist the very forces that held power in the world. The conversion was not a sudden shift, it was gradual, forced in some places, voluntary in others. The people of the North began to embrace Christianity, though not always with the fervor of true believers. Often, it was a matter of pragmatism, a way to ensure their place in a world that was quickly changing. The Slavs too were caught in the tide of Christianization. The Byzantine Empire and later the Catholic Church sought to spread their influence across Eastern Europe, sending missionaries and monks to convert the people of the East. As the Slavic lands were brought into the fold of Christianity, the old gods began to be demonized, their sacred sites turned into churches. Perun, once the thunder god and protector of the Slavic people, was cast aside in favor of the Christian god. The forests where the Leshy once roamed became silent, and the spirits of the land were forgotten. For the Slavs, the arrival of Christianity was also an attack on their way of life, their connection to the earth, and their relationship with the divine. The old gods had been a part of the land, a part of their daily rituals, and with Christianity's rise, those connections were severed. The churches that sprang up across the land were symbols of this new power, but they were also a reminder of what was lost. Christianity was not just a religion, it was a force that sought to wipe away centuries of belief and culture. The Slavs were not immune to this change, though many resisted, holding on to their old traditions in secret, even as the world around them shifted. In both the Norse and Slavic worlds, Christianity did not just replace the old gods, it brought with it a new worldview, a new moral code, and a new understanding of the cosmos. The Christian God, all-knowing and all-powerful, stood in stark contrast to the gods of the old world. The old gods were flawed, human in their emotions and actions. They were a part of the world, not separate from it. But the Christian God was above all, a ruler of a new, divine order that extended beyond the earthly realm. The myths of creation, death, and rebirth, once tied to nature and the cycles of life, were now replaced by the promise of salvation and eternal life in heaven. The spread of Christianity, though it would eventually become the dominant faith in both the Slavic and Norse lands, did not completely erase the old ways. In the shadows, the ancient gods and spirits still lingered. The old stories still found their way into the hearts of people, whispered in secret, passed down from generation to generation. Even as the churches rose and the crosses were carved into the landscape, the echoes of the past could still be heard, calling out to those who remembered the gods of thunder, the spirits of the forest, and the forces that governed the earth. Christianity had come to claim the soul of the land, but the old gods, though cast aside, had not been forgotten. The rise of Christianity was not the end of the world, it was simply a new chapter. The gods of the old world would never fully disappear. They would live on in the stories, in the traditions, and in the hearts of those who had once worshipped them. The rise of Christianity marked a turning point in history, but it could never erase the deep connection between humanity and the divine that had been built over centuries. The old ways had faded, but they had not died, they had merely been transformed into something new. There are moments in life when the world feels far too large, and the weight of the unknown presses down on you, making you question if survival is even possible. For countless generations, the ancestors of the Norse and Slavic peoples faced these very fears, standing in the face of nature's fury, battling the harshest winters, the darkest nights, and the endless uncertainty of the world around them. And yet, in the face of these challenges, they survived. They survived not just physically, but spiritually, their belief in forces beyond their control providing strength, guidance, and purpose. In both Norse and Slavic folklore, survival was never just a matter of physical endurance, it was a matter of the spirit, of resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. The harsh landscapes, the unforgiving weather, the dangers lurking in the forests and seas, these were constant tests of human willpower. Yet, within the stories, there was always an underlying theme of hope. No matter how impossible the odds seemed, no matter how dark the world appeared, there was always a path forward, a way to endure, and a chance to emerge victorious. The Norse were no strangers to harsh conditions. They lived in a world where survival was a constant struggle against the elements. The winters were bitter, the nights long, and the land unforgiving. Yet, they were warriors at heart, and in their stories, survival was often a matter of courage and determination. Take Thor, the god of thunder, for example. He was not just a god of war, but a god of protection, standing as a symbol of strength against the forces of chaos. His battles were not only with giants and monsters, they were with the very forces of nature itself. His hammer, Mjolnir, was a tool of survival, used to strike down the giants who threatened the gods and the world they protected. He embodied the belief that even in the darkest, most challenging moments, the strength to survive lay within. The Vikings, too, saw survival as an act of strength and willpower. Their seafaring journeys across vast, uncharted waters were acts of faith as much as of survival. To sail into the unknown, to face the raging seas and unpredictable storms, required not only skill but belief in the gods who would guide them. They believed that the gods, especially Njord, the god of the sea, would protect them on their voyages. But it wasn't just about asking for protection, it was about the understanding that survival was not guaranteed, that it was a hard-fought battle. In their myths, the gods did not save those who simply asked, they saved those who fought, who endured, who proved their worth through action. The message was clear, survival was not just a gift, it was something you had to earn. For the Slavs, survival was equally wrapped in myth and belief. Their landscapes were no less harsh than those of the Norse, with cold winters, thick forests, and fertile land that could turn barren without the right balance of ritual and work. The Slavs, too, believed that nature was alive with spirits and deities who held power over their survival. They didn't just pray for harvests, they offered rituals, sacrifices, and thanks to the gods and spirits who watched over them. Perun, the god of thunder, was the protector of the people, while Velis, the god of the underworld, represented the dangers that lay beyond. Mokash, the goddess of fertility, was not just a symbol of life, but a reminder that survival depended on a delicate balance between life and death, prosperity and hardship. In Slavic folklore, survival was also about outwitting the forces that sought to destroy you. The Leshy, the spirit of the forest, was both protector and trickster, guiding those who showed respect to the forest, but leading astray those who dared disrespect it. It was believed that the Leshy could make people lost, confused, and wander forever through the forest. Survival, in this context, was not just about physical strength, it was about knowing the rules, understanding the land, and respecting the spirits that governed it. A person who could survive in the forest was not necessarily the strongest, but the one who could outthink the dangers that lurked. But beyond nature itself, survival in folklore was about the fight against monsters and supernatural creatures that sought to destroy humans. Whether it was the Vikings battling giants or the Slavs fending off spirits of darkness, folklore was filled with stories of creatures that represented forces of death, decay, and chaos. Yet, these were not just simple battles between good and evil, they were tests of human resilience. The Vikings had their tales of warriors who faced impossible odds and emerged victorious through sheer courage. One such tale is that of Sigurd, the hero who slays the dragon Fafnir and wins a hoard of treasure. But the treasure isn't the point is that Sigurd survived, that he faced his fears, defeated the odds, and lived to tell the tale. Survival, in these stories, was not just about escaping death, it was about conquering it. In Slavic folklore, survival was just as much about confronting the darkness, the Chernobog, the god of darkness, and the spirits that roamed the land. Yet, even when confronted with darkness, there was always a flicker of light. The people survived through community, through rituals, and through their connection to the earth and the gods. The domovoi, the household spirit, was a reminder that no matter how dark the world outside may be, there was always safety within the home. It was the family, the bond between individuals, that ensured survival in a world that could often be hostile. Both Norse and Slavic peoples, through their myths, understood that survival was not guaranteed by strength alone, it was about the connections between people, the earth, and the divine. It was about rituals, the respect for nature and the forces that governed it, and the strength of the human spirit. The old stories were filled with heroes who faced death, battled impossible odds, and emerged victorious, not because they were invincible, but because they understood that survival was a constant act of faith. Faith in themselves, in their gods, and in the belief that, no matter how dark it became, there would always be a way to endure. As the wind howls through the trees and the night presses in, those old stories remind us, survival is not simply a matter of existing, it is about fighting, believing, and enduring. The power to survive is always within us, if only we have the courage to reach for it. The world we live in today, with its bustling cities, technology, and ever-advancing sciences, often seems far removed from the ancient myths that once guided the lives of our ancestors. Yet, these age-old stories continue to resonate with us in ways we might not even recognize. They have been passed down through generations, evolving, shifting, and often appearing in unexpected places. The symbols of Norse and Slavic mythology, once deeply tied to nature, gods, and cosmic forces, have found new life in modern culture, in the stories we tell, the symbols we wear, and the way we understand our place in the world. One of the most striking ways that these mythological symbols persist is in popular culture, particularly in films, television shows, books, and video games. Characters, settings, and plots drawn directly from Norse and Slavic mythology continue to captivate audiences, bringing ancient tales into the present day. And in doing so, these myths are transformed and remade, their original meanings stretched and twisted to fit modern sensibilities. Take, for example, the resurgence of the Viking mythos in recent media. The figure of Thor, the thunder god, has not only found a home in the pages of comic books, but also in the sprawling Marvel Cinematic Universe. The modern interpretation of Thor is a striking blend of the ancient god's warrior spirit, the modern hero's journey, and the comic book flair that speaks to our need for something both fantastical and human. The hammer, Mjolnir, once a symbol of divine power, has become a symbol of strength, protection, and justice, qualities that resonate deeply in our current era. It's no longer just a tool of destruction, it's a symbol of heroic action in a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable. In the same vein, the Viking aesthetic, which draws heavily from Norse mythology, has exploded in fashion and design. The imagery of runes, axes, and shield maidens can be seen everywhere, from tattoos to clothing to the architectural style of modern homes. People are drawn to these symbols not just for their historical value, but because they represent qualities that transcend time, bravery, resilience, and the connection between humanity and the forces that shape our world. When people wear a symbol like Mjolnir, they're not just paying homage to an ancient deity, they're identifying with the strength and spirit of the Norse warriors who once wielded it. On the other side of the continent, Slavic mythology has made its mark in more subtle, yet equally profound, ways. Folklore creatures like the Domovoi and Baba Yaga have found their way into modern storytelling, sometimes in their traditional forms, sometimes twisted into darker, more complex characters. The Domovoi, a household spirit, has been reimagined in films, literature, and even video games as a figure that represents not just the protector of the home, but the spirit of family and legacy, a reminder of the importance of roots and connection in a world that often values individualism over community. Similarly, Baba Yaga, the terrifying old witch who lives in a hut that stands on chicken legs, has evolved from a figure of fear to one of wisdom, power, and mystery in many contemporary works. These transformations are part of how we, as a society, attempt to reclaim and recontextualize ancient fears and desires, making them relevant to our modern world. Modern video games, too, are rife with references to both Norse and Slavic mythology. Games like The Witcher and God of War immerse players in worlds where gods, spirits, and mythical creatures from these traditions are brought to life in vibrant, interactive ways. These games often allow players to explore the ancient tales of these cultures firsthand, while also adding layers of personal choice, action, and consequence. The Valkyries of Norse mythology, once feared as agents of death, are now characters with depth and agency. In The Witcher, Slavic mythological creatures like Leshy, Striga, and Vadianoi come alive as not only terrifying beings, but as reflections of the human experience, with their own motivations, desires, and struggles. Yet, perhaps the most profound place these mythological symbols have surfaced is in the everyday lives of people. Tattoos, jewelry, and artwork often feature symbols drawn from ancient traditions. Thor's hammer, runes, and Slavic sigils are inked on skin as declarations of strength, protection, and faith in forces larger than oneself. These symbols act as reminders of ancient wisdom in the face of modern challenges. Just as they once held power to guide, protect, and shape the lives of our ancestors, they continue to do so today, albeit in different forms. What's more, the symbols themselves represent much more than mere decorative motifs. They carry deep, universal meanings. The Yggdrasil, the world tree of Norse mythology, for instance, is a symbol of connection, the tree's roots reaching down into the underworld, its trunk supporting the heavens, and its branches holding together all realms of existence. Today, we see this symbol on everything from corporate logos to spiritual tattoos, often representing the interconnectedness of all things. The Slavic oak, similarly, stands as a symbol of strength, growth, and endurance, a tribute to the ancient beliefs that nature itself is a living entity deserving of reverence. In a world increasingly driven by technology and disconnected from nature, these symbols serve as reminders of our shared humanity and our ancient connection to the earth. They speak to a longing for balance, for understanding our place in the world and our relationship to forces beyond our control, whether it be the gods, the spirits of nature, or the inherent power of the earth itself. Even beyond the visual and cultural resurgence, the themes of survival, resilience, and the divine struggle embedded in Norse and Slavic mythology continue to play out in the stories we tell, the films we watch, and the books we read. These ancient mythologies provide us with a framework to understand the challenges we face, both individually and as a society. The gods and heroes of these mythologies, whether they are battling giants or the forces of darkness, represent the struggles we face within ourselves, our communities, and our world. As modern culture evolves, the symbols of the past remain with us, shaping how we see ourselves, our struggles, and our victories. Whether we wear Thor's hammer around our neck or watch a movie about gods and monsters, these symbols remind us that the myths of the past are never truly gone. They are woven into the fabric of our lives, shaping how we understand the world, how we confront our fears, and how we survive in a world that can sometimes seem as unpredictable and chaotic as the worlds the ancient gods once ruled. And in that, we find not just meaning but a connection to something far greater than ourselves, something ancient, something timeless. In the quiet corners of the world, where the hum of the modern age can feel distant, there exists a growing movement, a resurgence of old ways, a return to the sacred rituals and beliefs of ancient times. This is not merely nostalgia or a fleeting trend, it's a revival, a rediscovery of pagan traditions that had once been lost or suppressed in the wake of modernity and monotheism. From the gods of the Norse pantheon to the spirits of the Slavic world, these ancient beliefs have not only endured but have blossomed once again in the hearts of people searching for a deeper connection to the world around them. The modern world, often dominated by technology, consumerism, and a sense of detachment from nature, has left many yearning for something more, something that feels real, grounded, and meaningful. In a time when society seems to be teetering between progress and crisis, ancient paganism has reemerged as a powerful reminder that human beings have always sought connection to the earth, to the divine, and to each other. This modern pagan revival is about reclaiming a sense of belonging, not just to society, but to the very forces that shape the world. The Norse revival, in particular, has gained considerable momentum. Norse paganism, or asatru, was the dominant belief system in Scandinavia and the Germanic world before the rise of Christianity. In recent decades, a new generation of Norse enthusiasts has begun to reconnect with these ancient beliefs, finding in them not just myths, but pathways to understanding life, death, and the cosmic forces that govern existence. It's a call to arms for those who seek something beyond the sterile confines of modern religion, something visceral, wild, and untamed, much like the warriors and gods of old. At the heart of this revival are the gods themselves, Odin, Thor, Freyr, and the other deities who once roamed the Norse cosmos. In the sacred texts like the Poetic Edda and Prose Edda, these gods are not distant, abstract beings, they are fierce, flawed, and deeply connected to the struggles of the world. They represent aspects of life that resonate today: courage, sacrifice, wisdom, and honor. Odin, the All-Father, seeks knowledge at any cost, a reminder to those in the modern world that wisdom is not freely given, it is earned through sacrifice and a willingness to face the unknown. Thor, the Thunder God, embodies strength and protection, qualities that many modern practitioners look to as guides in a world that often seems chaotic and uncertain. But it's not just about the gods themselves, it's about a spiritual connection to the land and the natural world that sustained the Norse people for centuries. The worship of Yggdrasil, the world tree, is a way of honoring the connection between all things, earth, sky, and sea. For modern pagans, this symbolic reverence for nature offers a healing antidote to the environmental crises and disconnection many feel today. By planting their roots in the old ways, they seek to restore a sense of balance between humanity and the earth, between civilization and the wild, untamed forces that still govern the natural world. In parallel to the Norse revival, the Slavic pagan traditions have also found a resurgence. Once suppressed under Christian rule, Slavic paganism had all but faded into obscurity. But as people search for deeper roots, Rodnovery, the reconstruction of Slavic spiritual practices, has emerged. This revival is not merely a return to the past, it is an adaptation of ancient wisdom to the modern world. The Slavic gods, Perun, Veles, Mokosh, and others, are being honored once again, with rituals and festivals designed to celebrate the changing of the seasons, the harvest, and the cycles of life. In Slavic paganism, nature is alive with spirits, and the land itself is sacred. The domovoi, the household spirit, is invoked for protection and prosperity, while the Leshy, the spirit of the forest, is respected as a keeper of the wild. These spirits are not abstract concepts, they are real, tangible forces that are seen in the rustling of leaves, the movement of water, and the creatures that share the land. The connection between the modern Slavic pagan and their ancient ancestors is profound, the belief that the spirits of the land still watch over them, guiding them through life's challenges. One of the most striking aspects of the modern pagan revival is the renewed focus on ritual. In an age where time is fragmented and everything is rushed, the rituals of the past serve as a grounding force, a way to reconnect with the rhythms of the world. Slavic and Norse pagans, much like their ancestors, perform ceremonies to honor the changing seasons, to celebrate the harvest, and to mark the turning of the year. These rituals are not simply acts of devotion, they are moments of connection to the gods, to the spirits, and to the earth itself. Through these rituals, people find a sense of community, a shared experience that transcends the isolation of modern life. Modern pagans often reclaim symbols and practices that were once viewed with suspicion or demonized by Christian orthodoxy. Sacrificial rites, which were once associated with blood and violence, have been reimagined in a more symbolic and peaceful way, often as offerings of food, drink, or prayers. The Yule log, once a central part of the winter solstice celebrations, has made a comeback as a symbol of warmth, light, and hope during the darkest part of the year. Even feasts and fires, rituals of unity and celebration, are becoming central to pagan festivals once again, reasserting a connection to the cycles of life that modern society has all but forgotten. The appeal of modern paganism is not just religious, it is philosophical. It offers a worldview where humans are part of a greater web of existence, where gods and spirits are not distant or judgmental, but rather deeply involved in the lives of those who honor them. The focus on nature, community, and respect for the cycles of the earth gives modern pagans a sense of purpose and meaning that feels deeply rooted in something timeless and eternal. In a world that is often fractured and transient, this connection to the ancient, to the eternal forces of nature, offers a refuge, a place to belong. Perhaps the most profound aspect of this modern pagan revival is that it is not just a return to the past, it is a reclamation of ancient truths, reshaped for the modern world. It's about finding the divine in the world around us, recognizing the sacredness of life, death, and rebirth, and understanding that humanity is not separate from nature but a part of it. The gods, the spirits, and the rituals are not just relics of a bygone era, they are living, breathing forces that still have much to teach us. In an age where the world seems to be hurtling forward at an ever-accelerating pace, where the future feels uncertain and fragmented, the revival of ancient paganism offers a sanctuary. It is a reminder that the old ways, while seemingly forgotten, are still very much alive. They are not simply myths, they are a part of who we are, of where we come from, and of where we might still go. When we look closely at the Norse and Slavic mythologies, it's easy to be swept away by the distinct flavors of each. One seems to echo the icy winds of the north, with thunder and battles in the sky, while the other hums with the earthy rhythms of deep forests and vast plains. Yet, beneath the surface, there are undeniable threads that connect these two mythological worlds, threads that span across centuries and borders, tying the cultures together in ways both unexpected and profound. At the same time, these mythologies possess their own unique identities, sculpted by the landscapes, history, and beliefs of the peoples who created them. It's in these overlapping threads and distinctive identities that the beauty of myth truly shines. Norse and Slavic myths may tell different stories, but they often speak of the same universal human experiences: life, death, love, battle, and the search for meaning in an unpredictable world. There's something deeply resonant in the way these cultures shape their stories around gods, spirits, and heroes, and how these figures, whether thunderous or whispering, connected the people to their world. At the heart of both mythologies is a belief in the sacredness of nature. The Norse revered the world tree, Yggdrasil, which connected all of existence, its roots deep in the underworld and its branches reaching into the heavens. Similarly, the Slavic peoples honored their own natural world, with spirits like the domovoi protecting the household and the Leshy guarding the forests. The emphasis on nature is a reflection of the strong bond these cultures shared with their environments. The land was never just something to inhabit, it was alive, a force unto itself, with its own spirits, rhythms, and challenges. Fate and destiny were intertwined with the very fabric of the earth. Both traditions also hold the power of the gods as a central theme. The gods of the Norse world, Odin, Thor, and Freya, were not distant, perfect beings, they were deeply intertwined with human struggles and sacrifices. Odin himself sacrificed an eye for wisdom, a reminder that knowledge often comes at a cost. In Slavic myth, gods like Perun, the god of thunder, and Velis, the god of the underworld, also personified forces of chaos and order, life and death. These gods were not simply symbols of celestial perfection, but representations of the forces that shaped the world and its people. They were present in the everyday struggles of human existence, guiding, testing, and, at times, demanding sacrifice. However, despite these shared themes, Norse and Slavic mythologies carved out their own distinct identities through their unique gods, heroes, and rituals. The Norse pantheon is defined by the stark conflict between the forces of order and chaos. The Aesir gods, like Odin and Thor, were constantly at war with the Jötnar, giants, who represented the chaotic and destructive forces of nature. The myth of Ragnarok, the end of the world, is a testament to this cyclical clash, where even the gods themselves must face their own inevitable destruction. Slavic mythology, on the other hand, carries a less fatalistic tone. While there is no shortage of battle and conflict, Slavic myths focus more on the balance between forces of light and darkness. The god of the sun, Dasbog, represents life, fertility, and abundance, while his counterpart Chernabog, the god of darkness, represents destruction and misfortune. This duality isn't necessarily about endings, but rather about the interplay between opposing forces. Life cannot exist without death, good cannot exist without evil. It's a more holistic view, one that embraces the complexity and messiness of existence. At the core of these mythologies, we see how human existence is shaped by the interaction of the divine and the mundane. In both traditions, humans are not mere pawns on a chessboard of cosmic forces, they are active participants in the cosmic dance. Whether it's the Valkyries taking warriors to the halls of Valhalla or the Slavic warrior calling upon the gods for strength in battle, human agency is crucial in these myths. People are not simply subject to the whims of the gods, they interact with them, make sacrifices, and often seek to influence their fate. It's a world where the divine and human are intertwined in a way that feels intimate, personal, and, at times, fragile. Despite these similarities, there are unique aspects that set the two mythologies apart. Norse mythology has a certain grandeur, a sense of scale that reflects the vastness of the northern landscapes. The gods themselves are larger than life, often associated with the elements, thunder, lightning, wisdom, and the world is one of sprawling realms, from the icy expanse of Jotunheim to the majestic halls of Asgard. The Norse people themselves were fierce warriors, and their mythology often reflects this warrior culture, with gods who fight in battle, each carrying a sense of divine nobility and sacrifice. There's a sense that, no matter how many times the world may end, the warrior ethos will always survive. Honor, bravery, and strength are eternal. Slavic mythology, on the other hand, feels more rooted in the earth and home. The spirits that inhabit the Slavic world are deeply connected to the land, whether it's the domovoi who protects the home or the Leshy who guards the forest. The gods and spirits of Slavic myth don't always embody grand, cosmic struggles. Instead, they're often local figures, tied to the rhythms of nature and human life. This focus on the everyday is reflected in the more practical, communal rituals, honoring the harvest, the changing of seasons, and the cycles of life and death. There's an earthy quality to Slavic mythology that ties it to the land and the people who depend on it for survival. But even in this earth-centered worldview, there's still room for the divine, the supernatural, and the otherworldly. The spirit world is always just beyond the veil, lurking in the shadows of the forest or the deep recesses of the home. The Mokosh, the goddess of fertility and the earth, represents the life-giving forces of nature, but also the inevitable end of all things. It's a reminder that life, in the end, is not separate from death, it is merely one aspect of an unbroken cycle. In the end, the Norse and Slavic mythologies are both reflections of human experience. They are tied to the landscapes and histories that shaped them, yet they also speak to the same human concerns, struggles, questions, and the search for meaning in a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable. They remind us that, despite our differences, there are common threads, shared values, symbols, and ideas that bind us across cultures and time. And in these threads, we find not just the stories of ancient gods, but the timeless wisdom that continues to shape our understanding of the world and our place in it.